To my right is Bounty Law Series lead and Jake Cahill himself, Rick Dalton. And to my left is Rick's stunt double, Cliff Booth. So, Rick, explain to the audience exactly what it is a stunt double does.
Actors are required to do a lot of dangerous stuff. Cliff here is meant to help carry the load.
Is that how you describe your job, Cliff?
What, carrying his load? Yeah, it's about right.
My hands are registered as lethal weapons. We get into a fight, I accidentally kill you. I go to jail.
Anybody accidentally kills anybody in a fight, they go to jail. It's called manslaughter.
That was the best acting I've ever seen in my whole life.
Like you. Rick fucking Dalton.
Coming at you like an Archie had for your brain. It's MVP Mutant Radio.
Once upon a time in a little town called Mutantville, there was Streebo Rama and Bat32. Welcome back, my faithful mutants. This is your host, Streebo. Joining me today is Bat32, impresario of exploited cinema. Just screwed the name of the podcast all up. Exploited Cinema, Bat32. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, sir, for having me back on the show. I thought I did terrible on that last show me and Dale were on, so I don't know. Try to change it, maybe. I don't know. I hadn't podcasted in so long, so I don't know.
Nah, you guys are fine. It took a minute to get you woken up and rolling, but once we got the gears greased, so to speak, yeah, everything was good. I thought it turned out to be a really fun show. And I think today will be a fun show.
Oh, yeah.
I think today will be fun because you were one of the people that came to mind when I thought that, hey, I'm going to do a review of Quentin Tarantino's new and 9th film, apparently. I guess they're not counting Hotel Room or whatever, or 4 Rooms, whatever it's called.
4 Rooms, yeah. The short.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I just returned from watching for the second time this week, and I must say that I absolutely loved it. Now, out of the gate, I will say for people that have not seen it, we're going to do our standard MVP Mutant Radio review format, where we're going to give you a spoiler-free opening, so you guys can listen to this part if you want. If you haven't seen the film, and we are not going to spoil it for you. You're not going to learn anything that you don't learn by just watching the trailer. And then we'll have a quick break and come back for our Shatterdome segment, where we will discuss Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in full spoilery detail. So, Bat, thanks for joining me, man. You actually came prepared. You brought some tidbits of knowledge, some sleazoids, if you will, to drop on our little mutant ears out there.
I don't know how sleazy there is some sleazy stuff, but yeah, there's some, I decided to go through because first, like I told you, I didn't know if we were going to do a spoiler episode or we're going to do it just a spoiler free. And I'm like, That's not going to give me a lot to talk about. So I should find some fun facts about Quentin Tarantino.
Well, I only say sleazoid because if this was a segment on exploited cinema and these were factoids, they would be called sleazoids.
We never did any. That's like some Joe Bob stuff. We never broke it down like that. We should have. I don't know. Yeah. Well, here's a little fact that kind of goes in with Once Upon a Time. Apparently, Tarantino, he was named after Quint Asper, Burt Reynolds' character in CBS's Gunsmoke. Because Burt did appear, I want to say he was like the blacksmith or something like that.
I believe he was a Native American. I never watched the show, but I've heard that.
He played multiple characters, actually, because I've seen him as a blacksmith.
Many people did on Gunsmoke, yes.
Yeah. It's like they'd like rotate them out for maybe like a season or two, and then bring them back, and then, oh, like this is a brand new character, you know?
Yeah, that show ran for like 2 decades, just about.
Mhm.
So, and that is germane because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood features westerns, and Rick Dalton is an aging western actor.
Cliff's an aging Western stuntman too, as well.
That is.
Yeah. I guess I could throw out another one, and then I don't know. We could cut to a break, and get into the meat and potatoes.
Oh, you didn't want to
Here's
throw
one
them all
more.
out right up front? Just throw them all out there.
Oh, you want me to throw them all out?
Sure.
Okay, well, we could blow the whole load here.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot more loads to blow, so to speak. So
Right.
there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah. At 14, Tarantino wrote a screenplay called Captain Feach Fuzz and the Anchovy Bandit, and I guess this was based on Hal Needham's Smokey and the Bandit, so there's another Burt Reynolds reference.
Nice.
He actually cast Burt Reynolds as George Spawn, but Burt, untimely death, stopped him from doing one final role here, so.
Tragically passed. And man,
Yeah.
he was sad to see in his final days because he seemed to have really poor health.
His late years, he looked like he, was battling something or other for a while there for the past, 5-6 years, because he had slimmed down, lost muscle. This guy, I remember growing up watching, even when he was in his 50s and 60s, he was fairly buff still.
Right.
The summer after his 15th birthday, Tarantino was grounded by his mother for shoplifting Elmore Leonard's novel The Switch from Kmart. He was allowed to leave only to attend the Torrance Community Theater, where he participated in such plays as 2 + 2 Makes Sex and Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, well, that's the first that I've heard of that. I've never heard of 2 + 2 Makes
Sex.
That's funny.
Yeah. At about 15, he dropped out of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Narbonne High School in Harbor City, LA. He then worked as an usher at a porn theater in Torrance called the Pussycat Theater. It was part of the whole Pussycat Theater chain. So he worked at the Torrance location. I don't know how long. But interesting job for a 15-year-old, I would say.
Very much so. I've read his accounts of working in the porn theater, and I think he always kind of attributes his distaste for nudity in films to that. That's why I think he doesn't have any, or he has very little nudity in any of his films. The only thing I can think of is like in Django Unchained, where they pull the wife out of the hot box, but that's very much in character of the scene. It's not meant to be titillating at all.
There's none in Once Upon a Time, even,
right.
When they go to the mansion,
when one would think, exactly.
Yeah, grotto scene, and there was none, so. Yeah, I thought he was afraid of nudity or something, but he's not afraid of feet.
He loves him some feet.
So in '86, Tarantino got his first Hollywood job working with Roger Avery as a production assistant on Dolph Lundgren's exercise video, Maximum Potential. That was the first I'd heard about that. Yeah,
that's the first I've heard of that. I've never even heard of Dolph Lundgren's exercise video. That's hilarious.
Yeah. The following year, he played, and a lot of people know this, Elvis impersonator in Golden Girls episode Sophia's Wedding, Part 1.
Which I have seen that episode. Have you seen it? I mean, he just...
Yeah, I never saw it when it, showed or even reruns or anything, but I have seen it, in the modern YouTube age. I was able to track it down, so...
Yeah, he's one of 10. I think he might even be the last one that comes in. It's almost like if you're watching it for Quentin, he's like the last one on there. But don't quote me on that. Speaking of which, I'm going to say don't quote me or fact check me on anything I say in this episode, because the film itself is, it's filled with so many references and so many allusions that, you have to have an encyclopedic knowledge completely of film and pop culture and television and everything to understand it all. So there will be some things that I know I'm going to misspeak upon. So forgive me for that. But what I am going to do is, share my experience upon it.
Yeah, I might be able to correct you on, because heavily immersed, and I don't know. My mom's a hippie, and like I grew up with a lot of this stuff around, a lot of the music, and a lot of the movies. My dad being a film buff, and that's we talked about the one reference, the radio spot reference. We'll get into, but yeah, that's my dad loves sci-fi, and so that's why I've seen stuff like that and was familiar with it. So, well, I'll jump into a nice little tidbit fact here, and then you didn't know about it. I just learned about it. He worked on a earlier film before his first student film, My Best Friend's Birthday, and that was called Warzone. And the cast were actually stealing shots in North Hollywood, and stealing means shooting without permits. The scene
we know all about that in
yeah. And I just can imagine, in Hollywood it'd be extra dangerous because they know about, movie making, whereas in rural areas you can get away with it. People even think it's cool. So, but yeah, the scene involved the villains, and they had real guns with plugs in the barrels. And one of them apparently climbed up over this fence so he could get at a light socket, because they had a portable light socket plug thing that they would jump up and screw it in, and then they would have power. And some guy saw them, so the owner or whatever of one of the buildings called the cops, and he came with them, and the cops showed up and held like the whole cast and crew at gunpoint. And apparently they had looked into getting a permit, but it cost $1,500. Now, they did get a ticket, but the ticket was only $250. So obviously, shooting without the permit was the cheaper route to go. So I guess someone could have gotten their head blown off, but,
That's funny. Yeah, I had never heard of that film. What's it called? Warpath?
Yeah.
What?
Warzone. I don't think it ever got released. I don't. There's a new book that's coming out. That's how I found out about it. Let me look it up here.
Yeah, I was familiar with My Best Friend's Birthday. I'd always heard that it was Tarantino's first unfinished film, and it was actually a film I sought out very early in the internet days. When we had a wider reach to find these kind of rarities and little obscure gems, and I was able to find it, and I still have a copy of it. And it's not great, but you can tell it's a Tarantino film. I mean, it has a scene or two that are just have that dialogue with that rhythm that's just, I'm snapping my fingers here, has that steady ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, that cadence to it.
Yeah, I found the title. It's called My Best Friend's Birthday, the Making of Quentin Tarantino Film, and it's going to be released this fall by Bear Manor Media. And he actually interviews, there's a link, diabolicmagazine.com actually has the whole article, and there's some interview excerpts with Tarantino in the book, and they did put him in the article. I guess he interviewed him and a lot of the cast members from My Best Friend's Birthday and Warzone, because I think they overlapped the crews and stuff, although that wasn't his film. He was just working on it. I don't know if he was just a production assistant or a cast member too, but yeah, he didn't direct Warzone. But yeah, that just shows, I guess he was 22 when he did that film. And, a lot of people say, oh, that guy, blah, 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 Yeah, I don't know. He's cut his teeth. I think that is kind of a hazing into the film industry they were out, they had their faces down in the dirt. The cops had the guns to their heads and shit. I don't know. I never had that happen on any of the little shitty shoots I did. How about you? Have you had police show up or... Yes,
we've run from the police many a times.
Okay.
Where we were filming and the cops came by, and we would watch them go around the block, and they were like, "Okay, cut, break, everybody, everybody behind the building." And then when the cops came back by, we'd wait for them to drive back off again. And yeah, the cover story was always, the advice is always know your local school. Okay, your local community college or whatever, and you are a student shooting a project for it. Okay, so that's what you say if the police ever stop you and talk to you like that. But yeah, there's this strange whole anti-Tarantino wave that's been popular amongst geeks and fandom for quite a while, but is now being joined by this anti-Tarantino the wave that's going on in the wider world, the Twitterverse and the whole SJW movement and whatnot, because of, the political climate we're in right now and blowback and whatnot because of the whole Harvey Weinstein scandal. But, that's a whole other thing.
He did himself a disservice when he came out and was about, I agree with him about the police brutality and violence going on in this country, but he probably should have kept his mouth shut and he went public about it and then pissed off a bunch of cops or people that are related, or like, my dad's a cop, or, my husband's a cop, and now they used to be Tarantino fans, and now just because, they perceive you as talking badly about police. I mean, he doesn't ever look like he was in favor of them to begin with anyway, with Reservoir Dogs cutting that cop's ear off and fucking dumping gasoline all over him. I know all the criminals in the country were like, yeah, burn him!
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a surprise or shock or anything that, he doesn't think too kindly of them. But
So is that your last sleazoid?
oh, I'll tell you I have another one, but I think a lot of people know it, but this one's another little non-movie related.
Okay.
In his spare time, Tarantino enjoys collecting board games and lunchboxes based on old TV shows such as Dukes of Hazzard and I Dream of Jeannie. So that's his hobby. That's his collecting hobby.
I can understand that. I too am a collector. I don't collect those things, but
No, me neither.
Definitely collect, movies and comic books and film memorabilia and whatnot.
I would of one old TV show, and I didn't grow up with it, but I do love the show. I would like an Adam 12 fucking metal lunchbox. I would. And I bet he has one. He probably has the whole, because I think they release different ones with different scenes, and yeah, I would love to just have one of those, because Adam 12's great. And that was a show that was made in the 60s in San Francisco during the height of the hippie era. There's even a biker one where they go out to an old West ranch and these bikers show up and shit. Yeah.
Adam 12 is a show I have never seen a single episode of.
Wow.
Never.
It's great. I think you'd love it, man. It's like all those shows like Chips and stuff where they have like well, what did we learn, from the whole story, kind of moral thing at the end, but they're fun, and they show a lot of San Francisco and Los Angeles during, 67, 68, 69. So if you are interested in that era, I mean, obviously you've tuned into this show and are listening because you like Once Upon a Time, so that's great, and check that out.
Yeah, well, speaking of Once Upon a Time, we may as well move on to that. Thank you for those useful sleazoids there, Bat32. We may have to give you your own intro music just for that.
Yeah.
So Quentin Tarantino is saying that this is his penultimate film. Now, penultimate is not final for those of you that don't know. It's next to final, next to last. I don't know why. I don't know why he's looking to just get out of film, because, I mean, Hollywood itself will eventually just kick you out if you look at all the great directors we grew up with. I mean,
I read what he plans to do after. Did you know what he plans to do?
He's going to do Kill Bill 3, right?
Well, no, I'm not
you
talking
mean
about his last film. I'm talking about
changing
after
careers.
he hangs it up. Yeah. Yeah, he wants to be like a writer. He wants to write film books, and I'm guessing probably put out have a DVD company or something. And now I don't know. He never said anything about that, but he wants to focus on being a film curator, I guess, so to speak, and historian. That's what he wants. And I think that's honestly what he should have been. And he's a great filmmaker, but that would have been another career path for him if he didn't get into making movies, I think.
Yeah, or just
maybe running a museum,
or just be a video store clerk, which he was, but those have all gone the way of the dinosaur.
Right.
Hopefully, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does not go the way of the dinosaur. I do hope it makes its money back. It's off to a good start. It actually has, I believe, Tarantino's career highest opening weekend.
I guess it made more money than they anticipated.
I think it made about 11 million more. It was projected to make about 30 million for its opening weekend.
Yep.
Came in at about 41 million. So it's a very good opening for him. That was higher than his previous highest opening, which is Inglourious Bastards. And
really?
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Now, not incredibly higher, but higher. Just, a few.
I didn't know that was his other high. That's what I was saying. I didn't realize that was opening weekend. Wow.
Yeah, opening weekend. I think Django was his highest grossing overall, though.
Yeah.
But
I saw that in theaters. It made my butt hurt. That's all I'll say about that.
I have seen pretty much everything of Tarantino's in theaters, with the exception of not everything. Everything after Reservoir Dogs.
Right.
Because at the time, I mean, you don't know who Reservoir Dogs is. You know, I mean.
But you could have seen that. Well, you're in college. You're shooting Hellraiser 3, weren't you, when that came out?
I was going off to college. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I learned about Reservoir Dogs from Siskel and Ebert, which I'm so sad about nowadays because we don't have anything like that. We don't have a resource.
Leonard Maltin's movie book. He put out the last one in 2012, I think, too. He doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, but Siskel and Ebert, they would focus episodes on things that they thought needed attention. Like they would do, a 2-part episode on Kubrick, or they would do a whole episode on the James Bond series. The Tarantino one was just they were talking about up and coming directors, but also concern for violence in films, and so they talked about Reservoir Dogs, of course, and they talked about what a fantastic film it was, and that was how I heard about it. Yeah, so those guys are definitely a huge part of my own just learning to think about film, my own learning to appreciate film and whatnot. So I'm hoping it makes its money back. It did have a pretty darn big budget of $90 million.
I heard there was 3 studios involved too with it for the production.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched an interview with Michael Madsen. He's like, "This is a big film." He's like, "I'm amazed. He was able to pull three studios in on this." So I don't know if it's like just one major studio and then minor studios, but yeah, that I guess we could bring this up. Like he's reached Scorsese, Kubrick, Francis Ford Coppola. I believe it with this film. He's reached that status now. I would never say that before, not even with Pulp Fiction or Jackie Brown, but I think he's finally reached that status where, like Kubrick, he could pretty much request anything and they'll do it now.
And that he can do anything he wants. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, because to me, still guys like Kubrick and Spielberg are still kind of, they're off in their own stratosphere in terms of, the quality of the work and everything, even as much as I love Tarantino's films and some people.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the power.
But in terms of power.
Hollywood power.
Yeah, he can do what he wants. I mean, because when you watch those scenes when they're driving around Hollywood, and it's like, man, they recreated this, and you're looking at it, and all these cars are authentic, and all the costumes, and
they rebuilt the Spawn Ranch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So all of that.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. I've got some more details on that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to tease the Shatterdome segment, which is coming up. So let's for people that have not seen the film yet, let's go ahead and give them a brief breakdown. So the way I would describe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's very simple. I would say starting out, it's a fairy tale because it starts with the words Once Upon a Time, or rather ends with that. It starts with it in the poster, but it ends with the words. So it's a fairy tale about an aging Western actor, cowboy TV show actor, Rick Dalton, and his stunt double, Cliff Booth. And it's just 2.5 days in the life of these guys in 1969 in Hollywood. And that's pretty much what it is. It's just a snapshot of the times. And plus, there's Sharon Tate in it. She is like thematically linked to it. She's linked to, the narrative threads that come together. But in terms of like breaking the film down, you don't necessarily have to mention her much at all. I mean, because she's, we're never allowed too deep inside of her head as much as we are inside Cliff's and Rick's, but that's pretty much all you needed to know. I mean, it's really a love letter to the time and very much a time capsule of that time period of 1969 when all those things, the Cultural Revolution and all these things are going on, and the political issues that they had then, which very much mirror what's going on today, though I think we have it worse to the nth degree in the modern world. But we're going to
because of the politically correct shit that's PC. I think.
Exactly.
They didn't have that then.
Yeah, man, holy shit.
Yeah.
PC, everything needed to be politically correct. I mean, that's like the extra side to the double-edged blade that we just did not need. It's like, man, we don't need this coming up behind us. We're already fighting this war on another front, and we don't need all this stuff coming up behind us. But yeah, so I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a buddy movie. It's a hangout movie, and it follows this actor and his stuntman, and you get to see this snapshot of their lives over these 2.5 days. Those 2.5 days are separated by, a time jump at one point without spoiling anything. But you follow them for that time. And, I've heard some complaints that the film has no plot or whatever. And I'm just like, God, what are you people talking about? I mean, it's very much a character study of those characters. And you could say, yes, there is a plot because they have, a decision that they have to make and face and about moving forward in their lives and whatnot. But it's also a movie that invites you to hang out with it. It's very much an American Graffiti or Dazed and Confused type movie where you're invited to ride along with these characters and hang out with them. And if you've ever been in Hollywood and up and down those strips and on the highway and everything, I mean, it's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just like being there and going up and down those roads and going through the narrow Hollywood hills and whatnot.
Yeah, Van Nuys Boulevard, and he goes to the Van Nuys Drive-In, and I mean, there's all kinds of Hollywood just thrown in there, and I don't know, it's interesting, and obviously I know I've heard some complaints, and there are some inaccuracies, with some cars and some pieces of music, but I don't know. I mean, it's probably the closest you're gonna glimpse on a big screen of that era. I don't think anybody else is going to be able to attempt it. I think the only one that I've seen in the past 20 years is Jim Van Beber on a micro budget with Manson family. He tried to duplicate that atmosphere in Ohio, and I think he did an all right job, but I don't think it's just really hard to do it, so.
I haven't seen Manson Family. I've been wanting to check it out for a while, but I just haven't got a copy of it. But yeah, I will say, on the negative side, the one that got me was Bruce Lee. We know Bruce Lee's in it because he's in the trailer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, there was a lot of stuff that was out of character. And I just mentioned that because I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan and because I thought the scene started off well. And I was just like, oh, I'm just thrilled. Everything's hitting the right beats. And then it just veered. And I was like, damn it, they could have, I could see the scene in my head staying true to Bruce and still being the same scene. They could have done it, with just a better technical advisor, invite Shannon Lee to be on the set for the day or whatever.
It would have been more interesting if it was Bruce Lee's stuntman, then that probably might have been more believable, and they're like, this is a stuntman,
Well, I'm going to share a story. I don't want to talk about it out of the spoiler-free segment. So, but
Bruce Lee did have a stuntman though on some stuff, didn't he? I mean, am I incorrect? He didn't do all his own stuff.
Everybody did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Did. But I do have some stories. Some Bruce Lee stories, but it'll spoil something in the movie, kind of. So I don't want to share it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so unless you've got something else to add, I think this is a good point to take a short break, give our listeners a little bit more of MVP Mutant Radio. You can recline your seats back as the Mutantville mothership ascends higher into the skies. We're passing 40,000 feet and climbing higher. You're listening to MVP Mutant Radio. We'll be right back after these words.
Do you remember your first time? The first time you fell in love with horror. Science fiction. Post-apocalyptic fantasies. MVP Mutant Radio will help you rediscover your inner fan again as we talk you through the latest and greatest theatrical releases in horror.
You're all going to die tonight.
We can guide you to a new, better, happier you.
Science fiction.
Prometheus, are you seeing this?
Big things have small beginnings.
Law is not the law. I am the law.
And all-out badassery. We'll bring you interviews with independent filmmaking masterminds, as well as specials like Murder by Music and the Drunken New Year's Eve Mega Show. Listen online at www.mutantville.com or subscribe on iTunes.
If you're a man, you don't cry about it. You take life, the ups and downs. If you're a real man, you never go down, you just stay up.
The Mutantville players are ready to lead the art jihad against haterism and the forces of fandom.
I'm Dean Martin, and I have a fine introductory offer for you. I'm offering to introduce you to these 4 lovely ladies who work with me and Nigel Green in the new Matt Helm picture, The Wrecking Crew. Now, I want you to meet Elkie Fall. Elkie Summers, and Tatey. Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
Lovely girl. Nancy Cohen. Lovely little Jewish girl, Nancy. And we have and Dina Louise. Tina Louise, who in this picture, and we have a lot of fun in the picture. I've played in a lot of foursomes. I'm only kidding. It's Elkie Summers, Sharon Tate, Nancy Kwan, and Tina Louise. And I have been in a lot of foursomes in my day, but these girls, they have a stance, a grip, and a swing all their own. And right now, I'm going to hit a ball right into you, so watch yourself throw her. Yeah.
$1 billion in American gold en route to London was stolen from a train in Denmark. We can't send in a task force. It's got to be a one-man job.
Let me guess who you got in mind.
Do you think we can have our little talk now? Lie down. I want to talk to you. Oh, I'm a gypsy, Mr. Hell. My father was a gypsy. And he taught us one thing. Wise men enjoy pleasure before business.
I like your father's thinking. I thought you wanted to talk.
Why can't that wait? I always prefer pleasure before business.
I bet your father was a wise old gypsy. See this picture myself.
Where do the songs that I sing all day long come from? Just give the dues to Music City, home of that.
The spirit of the universe is an emptiness which is no thing. And MVP Mutant Radio.
Now, you know how powerful the devil is, and if you cross him, he's going to be mad as hell.
Today, at the edge of our hope, at the end of our time, we have chosen to believe in each other. Today we face the monsters that are at our door. Today we are canceling the apocalypse.
impossible at this time to know how many unaffected people are left. If for any reason you are one of us who hasn't become infected, take shelter immediately. Do not trust any friends or family members. I repeat, do not trust friends.
We're canceling the apocalypse, my mutant children. That's right. It's time for the Shatterdome. This is our segment here on MVP Mutant Radio, wherein we discuss our topic in full spoilery detail. I'm Streebo. He's Bat32. Welcome back. Bat, let's get it going.
Yeah, man. Well, the movie opens up with, what is the show called? Bounty Law?
Bounty Law. Dun.
Which is, and I watch a lot of, here's one of my little secret, like, I'm such a sleaze fiend, but here's one of my little secret, like, I guess you could call it boring or whatever. It depends on what your tastes are, but I do like Bonanza, Gunsmoke, Rifleman. I watch them on, I watch a lot of the reruns on MeTV in the afternoons, and then on Saturdays, it's a whole fucking retro Western show run, like, from, I think, 9 a.m. till like 5 o'clock at night, and they play all the shows. So yeah, this is Gunsmoke is basically what they're ripping off here. Pretty much. Yeah.
My three Westerns would be Kung Fu, The Wild Wild West, and then Gunsmoke.
So why did you like the Wild Wild West? Was it because of all like the little technical gadgets and shit?
I love the steampunk. You know, I mean, at the time you don't know it's steampunk, but that's essentially what helped create the steampunk genre. Yeah, and because Jim West is doing karate and stuff, man, and
right,
and it's cool. I mean, I that's, you know, we were talking about collectors earlier. You know, that's one of the things I've gone back and gathered as a collector. You know, get all those old shows.
You bought them?
Yeah, Wild West. You know, and one of the stuntmen that works on all the season is the guy Red, whatever his name is, but he was known as Red, and he was Elvis's bodyguard / karate training partner. He's in Roadhouse. He's the redheaded guy that owns the warehouse store in Roadhouse. Wow. You know, and he was like one of the major stunt guys on Wild Wild West. So you see him in a lot of episodes. You know, he's getting thrown through a window or whatever. But that show is just badass. We're gonna go off on a complete tangent.
I know, right?
But very quickly, it was badass because Jim West, you know, Robert Conrad, he did so many of his own stunts. There's this one sequence. It's in long shot, and it's this full bar room, you know, and it's got like stairs off to the side. So there's a balcony, stairs down. There's a chandelier hanging. And, you know, and he jumps off the balcony, grabs the chandelier, and then drops on a table, does a roll, and stands up. And it's all in one shot. And you're just like...
I read he's gotten knocked out while one of the scenes someone punched him and he got knocked out and they had to wait for him to wake back up to finish shooting. But, you know, like a trooper, these guys would be like, all right, I'm back, you know, I'm good, let's finish the scene, you know. We've got a break for the day, you know, pre-bandana shit, so.
On some of those episodes, they actually talk about that. It might only be on the first season, but they have they have a little introduction on the first season DVD set, and it'll be like Robert Conrad or somebody else, and they'll talk about either the character or something interesting happened in the episode or whatever. And he does talk about getting knocked out on one, and there's also another one where they made him stop doing his own stunts because he was like swinging on something, and they left the cut in the show, thank God. You know, I mean, if you get hurt, at least leave it in the show. But he swings on something and he lands, and when he comes down on his fucking head, you know. And it's like, and you could tell that it's bad. So after that, they made him stop doing his own stunts. But I think that wasn't until like the third season or something. You know?
It's, you know, it really is the 007 of Westerns. Yeah. It really is. It's not my favorite, but like when they do come on, I'll watch it just because it's fun. And yeah, I mean, he's doing his own stunts and shit, and it looks good. You know, it really does for the time period.
And it's germane to the conversation because Hollywood at a time, you know, especially television, was just fueled by these Western shows. There were so many of them, you know. And that's one reason I like Kung Fu is because at the time it was kind of the anti-Western Western. You know, you didn't have a hero that was carrying a gun, but a guy that was barefoot and carrying a flute and, you know, trying to make peace with people. And he was, you know, combating racism and all this stuff. But Gunsmoke is awesome. I can watch Gunsmoke today. You know, I mean, it's hard-hitting drama, and you'll see all these brilliant character actors on there. You know, you're like, oh, Dennis Hopper, and you know, yes, so many people.
Who's going to show up next? Oh, you know, the other one I really like is Wagon Train, man, because they always, like, you'd be like, oh, that sounds boring. No, because there's, like, the fucking scout. He always has his own little adventures where he rides ahead to the next town. And, yeah, man, these fucking shows are great. And there's, like, some of them have really, like, if you're a writer out here and you're looking for archetypes and stuff, look at these old Westerns. There are so many little, like, archetypes that you could grab. You don't have to steal anything, but, you know, archetypes, we've had these, you know, these are the building blocks of literature, you know. These are not original archetypes, but if you're looking for, you know, archetypes to build off of, these Westerns have them, man, you know. Like people being handcuffed to the sheriff and, oh, the guy dies. Well, fuck, what, and the key's lost. What is he going to do? Is he going to cut his hand off? He needs a hacksaw to get to, you know, those are archetypes. It could be set in any time period, too. So.
Yeah. And, you know, and you can look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood like that, in that these are archetypal. This is the archetypal Western actor and the archetypal stuntman.
Stuntman.
And this film, to me, it's like right now, it's like the ultimate buddy movie. I came out of watching this movie just happy. I was just like, man, this movie just made me feel so good. And you know,
you saw it twice.
I saw it twice in the first week, you know, and I was getting in the car and I'm just like, you know what, I want to see that again. That's what I'm sitting there thinking to myself. Now, as I'm watching the film, and I'm like, okay, Sharon Tate's in this, okay, the Mansons are in this. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I remember hearing years back, Quentin Tarantino is working on a Manson film, and I was like, really? That sounds like shit. Well, I guess this is what it was. And it's not really a Manson film that has very little to do with them, although it does, you know, feature that kind of stuff. But, so I'm like, you know, what's going to happen? Or, you know, are we going to see, you know, parts of the murder? You know, so I have kind of this anxiety the first time I'm watching it. And I'm like, you know, what's going to happen here? Because I've really grown to kind of love the Sharon Tate character, and of course, I'm totally there with Cliff and and
he's
Rick,
my favorite.
You know, I mean, Cliff, he's just the Zen master of '69, man.
Yeah,
and even Rick, I really like, even though, you know, he's kind of a whiny bitch through the whole thing, but you can tell he's still an artist, and that's what he's striving for, is to still create his art, you know. And you see that in the scene where they're filming the Western within the Western, which, can I say, I really love the way that was shot, because as you're moving with the camera, you're just suddenly transported into a Western. You don't realize it at the time. You're like, you know that they're going to film one, you know, they're filming a TV show, but the way it's shot is not shot like the filming of a TV show. It's shot like a Western, you know, because you don't see boom mics hanging down. You don't see you know, the makeup girl hiding over here in the corner, which you would have seen all these things. I mean, they really gave it some room to where you didn't see crew or anything like that, and they didn't break character until that moment where Rick breaks character. He's like, line,
right?
And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I was unsure if they were shooting a TV episode or if they were shooting a movie. And you know, all like the Western shows would always cut to black and white and be shot on
pilot.
Or it looks like the stock, yeah. Oh, it was the pilot. Okay.
Yeah, he said, you know, I'm doing a Western pilot, so it's the TV show.
Maybe it was in color. Maybe this was going to be one of the early color, you know, shows, or converting to that or whatever. But yeah, they don't break into the black and white and anything like that. So I was unsure, but yeah, I mean, that scene is great. It really does show DiCaprio's range and ability to be able to 1 minute be this character, his act that he's, you know, this actor that he's playing, and then the actual character within the movie, and shift gears on that flawlessly. You know,
he's got to get some kind of nod. He's got to get some kind of best actor nod. I mean,
you think he's going to win an Academy Award?
I don't necessarily think he'll win anything. He'll probably, I don't want to say something unkind. It'll be some bullshit that wins, which is usually what happens. But he deserves a nod. He deserves a nomination, because that was a layered performance. Because you see all these different layers of that character, Rick Dalton. You see how he seems shallow here, but then you see he has depth to him. And then when he's really in his element, which is on set in front of the camera, you can see the intensity that he brings to it, because there's this moment where he just snaps and he becomes this character, and when you're watching, you're just like, oh man, this is intense.
This is a Western I would want to watch.
Yeah.
I was watching and I was like, yeah, man, because I've seen like, there's this great one that actually has Randy Starr, who is a ranch hand on Spawn Ranch, and Gary Kenson, and it's called Machismo, 40 Guns or 40, I can't remember what the other, but it's called, you can find it, Machismo. Yeah, man, and it's got that feel of what this Western they were shooting has. So there's some gems out there that aren't spaghetti westerns that are fucking good. They are American-made westerns, and they're from like, the late 60s, early 70s, and they have that feel. There's not a ton of them, but there are some. So, and the western genre doesn't get enough credit. I mean, I don't know. I love it. I mean, where are you going to find perfect outlaw stories?
Well, the Western genre got played out, didn't it? I mean, because it was Hollywood for so long, it was television for so long, that once the 70s hit, I mean, it was played out. You had 2 decades of Gunsmoke, and as good as that was, even it was long in the tooth by the time it ended, I mean, they had essentially taken Marshall Dillon off screen, and they were just focusing on anybody else in the show that could.
Right.
They had told so many shows, so many stories that they had to just keep moving the focus around.
What a machine, too, you bring up a great point. How many fucking stories have they told on those shows? And like, what about Bonanza? That ran for a while, too, There's so many.
Sure. I think Gunsmoke was the longest running, though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great.
As I think it started in the late 50s, so 57 or 58, I think.
And it made it up to the early 70s. And that's when they all faded out. And then I like Kung Fu. I just love Kung Fu. People call it a kiddie show, but man, I love it. I mean, where else are you going to, hear these Eastern philosophies? You hear Zen philosophies. You hear a lot of Taoist philosophies. I mean, they'll quote a lot of the Tao Te Ching and stuff like that, And I mean, where else are you going to hear that and also see a character really promoting peace and harmony and whatnot? And also a show filled with brilliant character actors, because they were getting these guys coming off the Gunsmoke. They're like, well, you're on Gunsmoke, we'll come be on this show. And you just see these brilliant performances. Like there's one where Kane we're just getting on so many tangents, but whatever. Where Kane has to walk through a rattlesnake.
This is all stuff Tarantino likes anyway. I know he likes all this shit. So.
Sure. David Carradine was in Kill Bill,
Right.
Kane has to walk through a rattlesnake pit, okay? And the guy that's playing the heavy in that, he's like, his character is like half Indian. That's what they say at the time. Yeah, he's like half Comanche or whatever. But he is so intense. I'm like, man, who is this guy? And I saw him on a Gunsmoke episode and stuff too. And he was just so intense. I mean, he has some great lines. I mean, they have some of the best, just salty dialogue. It's really.
He probably walked from the Gunsmoke soundstage over to the Kung Fu soundstage. Yeah, it didn't even have to change his outfit. He's like, go over there and shoot your scene now.
It's good stuff. But I've just got to say, I mean, as of this writing, as of this recording of this podcast, we're not even one full week out from the opening of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's definitely my favorite film of the year, and that's above Avengers Endgame, which I'm a huge superhero mark. And I mean, it's my favorite film of the year. I mean, it made me feel so good and just kind of just uplifted. And Tarantino as a filmmaker, he just impresses me. I mean, there's this strange anti-Tarantino sentiment that's been going on for a really long time. And I think part of it, I don't know if it's jealousy on the part of some people or whatnot, but I will admit we all kind of have we have our different lines. We have our different tipping points. We have a different threshold where we kind of judge these things. Like, for example, I won't read like modern Spider-Man comic books because there's this Spider-Man storyline that they did called One More Day, where it essentially ends with him making a deal with the devil, and they reset the entire Spider-Man continuity. And I'm like, really? This is the final story you're going to tell? And then reset Peter Parker to being a teenager and he's not married anymore because he makes a deal with the devil. That's the superhero story we're telling. So that's my line. It's like, okay, I'm done. I don't know who you're writing these stories for. This is not true to the character, XYZ. And I can understand people being like, oh, well, Tarantino steals from everybody. Kill Bill steals from Lady Snowblood.
And a lot of other films.
Yeah, Mike White forever has been going on about Reservoir Dogs stealing from City on Fire. And I mention Mike because I like Mike. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I do value the opposing opinions. Okay. But forever I've been trying to figure out, like, why is this your hill to die on? I don't get it. Yeah.
Well, I hear a lot of people talking shit about this film and they haven't seen it yet. Yeah. And it's like, come on, man. If you guys are even like, there's a lot of people out there. I really respect their opinion.
Right.
But if you haven't seen it, if you say, I'm not interested, I'm not going to see it. Okay, cool. But don't speak on the quality of the film until as any kind of film reviewer, anybody, film historian or whatever, if you want to be taken seriously, if it's not for you and you just say like Serbian film, I saw that film. It wasn't for me. I made statements multiple times saying I didn't want to revisit that movie, and it wasn't
about that
me,
film. When I heard about a Serbian film, I knew I didn't want to see it. I said, I'm just not going to watch it. I'm not interested in that.
I mean, I'll watch just about, as far as cinematic, obviously real productions and not snuff or some sick shit like that or whatever, but if it's, if it's a production or whatever, I'll pretty much watch everything. But yeah, I mean, I didn't, I've watched Faces of Death and Traces of Death and shit like, and now, the Traces of Death are getting into some stuff that I don't really like. But, as a teenager, I would watch anything. If someone said, oh, this is taboo, this is on the fringes, I wanted to see it, John Waters, whatever,
Yeah, there's something about that, something about our human nature that we're just fascinated by the morbid. We have this morbid curiosity. If we see a car accident on the side of the road, we're going to slow down and look. If there are two people that break out in a fight in McDonald's, we're going to watch. Though nowadays people will take out their phone and record and yell "World Star," but what can you do about that? But there's just something about that. Yeah, I mean, we're more morbidly curious with the taboo. And I remember as a kid, it was almost a rite of passage to watch the Faces of Death series. You had to work your way up to number 3. It's like, oh, it's real. All these people get killed. And, it's like you had to work your way up. And it was like, oh, you haven't seen Faces of Death. Oh, you're not worthy of hanging out and talking to us,
Yeah.
This is as kids, 11 years old.
I think with the VCR coming along and beta tape and even Selectavision, early home formats.
Yeah.
I think that we've become voyeurs, and I know I'm a voyeur, and Sleaze Fiend magazine is the logo, the title of it has a peephole with the girl's breasts in it. Yes, it's about voyeurism. Film watching is about voyeurism. You want to peep into other people's lives and watch their story. We're voyeurs,
Mm-hmm.
So we live in a voyeuristic society, so that's why people want to take their phone out and record it, because they want to show other people this glimpse into their reality or whatever, somebody else's reality. And it's eye-opening to see things on this planet, and it's enlightening and it's disturbing at the same time, I think. But,
it's human nature. I mean, storytelling is for voyeurs. It's about we want to be entertained by other people's stories. And speaking of Sleaze Fiend, we're going to talk more about Sleaze Fiend magazine in the closing segment, so guys, stick around for that, and we'll talk more about that. I didn't want to talk about this in the opening segment, but the Bruce Lee section, okay?
Yeah.
So when it starts out, I'm down with it. Bruce is talking about his theories of combat, because Bruce was very down on the martial arts scene at the time, meaning the big thing was, karate tournaments, point tournaments, where you weren't supposed to make full contact, okay? You would stop short, essentially. And then certain blows were just illegal anyway. Okay, so you had to fight within this rule set. And the same with, judo tournaments and whatnot. It's like you had to fight within this rule set. And Bruce was always like, well, combat is combat. I'll give you one of his famous quotes. And something he used to do, he would take out his wallet and throw it at people. And they would catch it. And he would say, now what did you do when you caught that? He said, you didn't take a stance. You didn't say, is my left foot forward? Is my right hand up? Is it down? You just caught it. Okay, and it's about being in the moment and responding and having liveness as a martial artist and responding to the combat. So when he's talking about Cassius Clay, aka Muhammad Ali, and I'm totally down with that because Bruce was a huge boxing fan. He was a huge fan of Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali. But I'm gonna tell you where it took left is when they say, what would you do? What would happen if you ever fought Cassius Clay? And he said, I would leave him crippled. That was it. And I was like, God damn it, they fucked this scene up. He fucked this scene up. Because Bruce never said that. That was one person he would say, Muhammad Ali would beat me. That was one person that he.
So you think he believed that, or he just said that just to be gracious?
No, he believed that because he loved Bruce.
Yeah.
I mean, he loved Muhammad. He loved watching his fights. He was a fan of Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Jersey Joe Walcott.
Would it be a mixed martial arts matchup, or would it be a boxing match? Because yes, I think he would kill him in a boxing match if he wasn't able to kick him or anything. If it was just gloves.
Even in mixed martial arts, anything goes. Okay, and then another thing is they kind of tried to imply that Bruce did karate fighting tournaments. If you listen to the dialogue, and Bruce never did because he didn't like the restrictions. He had real fights. He challenged people as a kid, growing up in Hong Kong. He had real street gang fights where they would fight on rooftops. He had real challenge matches in America when he was teaching and whatnot, and people would challenge him. He'd be like, okay, well, no rules.
Took on Chuck Norris too as well.
Well, no, about all that. They just sparred.
So wasn't that, or is
that's
that
just
bullshit?
Legend. They just sparred.
That's a legend?
Yeah, that
never happened?
They just sparred. Yeah, sparring is
they
one
sparred.
thing,
Okay.
Not real fights. Okay, but I will tell you something that is real. Okay. So those are parts of the Bruce Lee scene that bother me. And then also the way Cliff kind of grabs him and throws him, I was like, man, that's bullshit, because Bruce was a hand trapping specialist. In other words, if you grabbed his arm, if you grabbed his arm or hands or whatever, I mean, he knew how to manipulate and turn it around to where he had a hold of you and he was hitting you.
Right.
So I was like, oh man, come on. You couldn't get Jeff Amata or somebody as a technical advisor to help on this sequence. But that didn't, damage my overall enjoyment of the film. I was just like, man, if they had just tweaked it here, he could have just said, Cassius Clay would beat me, and it would have given you a look into the Bruce Lee character. They could have done that. They could have had a little bit better choreography there. But there was a real life encounter on the set of the Green Hornet where he got into it with one of the stuntmen. Judo Gene LaBelle is a famous stunt guy. He was also a professional wrestler, so he's over the top at times. But he's a redheaded guy, and you'll see him on everything. I mean, from the Green Hornet to Married with Children. Famous stunt guy. But, he kind of got into it with Bruce one day, and they were talking about stuff. Gene is a judo guy. Now, judo guys, for people that aren't, mixed martial arts fans, or you don't know anything about it, I mean, there's basically strikers and there's grapplers. There's people who hit you and kick you, or there's grapplers that grab you and throw you. Okay, so Bruce was coming into this as essentially a striker. And he's talking to Gene, who's essentially a grappler. And, Gene got a hold of him, threw him, and put him in chokeholds, Yeah. And because of that, Bruce added grappling to his martial arts. It was part of his own personal evolution.
So is that based? Do you think that scene's based on that?
I do
incident?
think there is kind of perhaps a slight tip of the hat to that. But like I said, I have those problems with that particular scene. I thought Bruce was very.
I hated Zoe Bell there. I thought she was totally her character was just I don't know. It was just hey, look at this guest walk on. I did have a problem.
It didn't bother me. She's so much older than the last time I saw her that I didn't even recognize her the first time. So it just went right past me. Her and Lena Dunham too. Lena Dunham on the ranch. I just didn't even recognize her.
Mm-hmm. She's not an actress really anyway. She is a stunt woman, so it makes sense why he put her there, but she had a little too much dialogue, I think. She should have just had a little bit less, but that's my opinion.
I was okay with it.
Death Proof, but...
Well, it just goes to show, where we have different lines, where we all have our different lines. When we reach them, we've had enough.
I thought she was too over the top, so just my opinion.
One of the complaints about the film is people complain about Tarantino's foot fetish. I'm Facebook friends with some various directors and whatnot, and one of them said the film should be called "With Angels with Dirty Feet," okay, because you see the bottom of their feet through this whole film. And people,
I did want to bring up something about that. The one Pussycat or whatever.
First.
Yeah.
So So one of the complaints I saw was people complaining that Sharon Tate has her feet up in the theater, watching this film. They're like, oh, you can't write Sharon Tate, and he puts her in her seat. She puts her feet up on the theater. I'm watching this movie today. There's a lady 2 rows in front of me with her feet up on the seat in the theater, exactly like in the movie.
I put my feet up too, but I don't take my shoes off usually. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't get it. People like, let's talk about the actual film. Why are you critiquing these things as if they're somehow negative? Now, if it was like 90 minutes of feet, I'd be like, man, we've seen enough feet. But to me, it's okay. I mean, I'm okay with it. It's just kind of one of his things, I think, that creates, that gives him just another little tool to make characters more believable, to get you more into their head, to make you understand them a little bit more. Because she puts her feet up, it gives you just a tiny bit more of a glimpse into her psyche than if she was just sitting there just looking at the screen. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so strange that the things that people will kind of latch on to and see
I had a
negatives
problem
when
with,
they really
I had
aren't.
a problem with some of the feet though. My problem with the feet was when he picked up the Manson girl, which she's not technically an accurate Manson girl. She's an add-on character.
Right.
Because I don't remember Pussycat or whatever girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to mention that I have a theory that she doesn't even really live out at the ranch because her feet were too clean for a Manson girl. Those feet would have been jet black. She's a fucking hippie. Are you kidding me? And she lives out on the ranch.
Well, maybe
her
that's why
feet
she's
were cleaner than Sharon's.
They were pretty clean. Maybe that's why she. Maybe that's why she goes into town. She's the clean one. Because can you imagine how dirty some of those girls are?
But her armpits were pretty hairy. Did you notice that? That was accurate.
How can you not notice it? I mean, that
was great when she lays on his lap.
He forces you to look at it. And let me tell you something. Chicks with hairy armpits, that is such a turnoff to me. But I was kind of like turned on by this though.
Yeah, because you're in the era when in Rome, man. Like all the girls have bushes and hairy armpits. Hell yeah, whatever. Just get into it. You're not gonna get laid if you don't. So
yeah, and, she had her little hairy armpits, glaring up.
It was kind of
Brad
sexy.
Pitt. Yeah, it was. It was strangely erotic in some way. So. But yeah, that was Margaret Qualley as Pussycat, and I totally fell in love with her, man.
She's hot.
I mean,
the way she kept biting her lip and stuff. Oh man.
Yeah, her charisma, her looks.
Yeah.
Just the
way she moves.
Mm-hmm, the sparkle in her eye, the way she moved, she bounced around. She was so expressive physically. Steve Johnson posted a video. He had the same response. He posted a video of her doing a commercial for a fragrance where she does this strange interpretive dance through the whole thing. It's really worth checking out. It's pretty fascinating. But yeah, I totally fell in love with her, and I love the whole sequence at the Spawn Ranch. Let's get into that because I know you have a lot to talk about that. Because I'm going to tell you, because I can't stand Manson, dude. I can't stand the whole cult of personality behind it. That's kind of where I draw my line. I don't believe in glorifying killers. I mean, now I understand Manson as a fascinating, charismatic figure. Okay. But when I see people wearing shirts and stuff with his image, I'm just like, man, fuck you. I mean, there's just nothing cool at all about killing these people. And I've always had this fantasy of, what if Bruce Lee was there that night? They've got attacked. He would kick the shit out of those guys.
Yeah.
And history would have been changed. Because the house they were in was owned by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was Bruce Lee's student at the time. And Bruce was also friends with all those guys. He also helped train Jay Sebring, who was a karate black belt. But Jay Sebring was a very small guy and, just basic karate. He wasn't prepared for anything like that. But yeah, so I love seeing the Mansons get their fucking comeuppance in this film, man.
I've always been fascinated. I've featured articles, the Manson files in the magazine. I was always fascinated with these individuals because they've been propped up as America's boogeyman, or mainly just him as America's boogeyman. And from what I've read about him, other than being very dominant over women and everything, he really never had any kind of control over any. I don't give a fuck what Tex Watson says. He just orchestrates it, so he sounds like he's just a brainwashed slave. No, man, you were the one that put the fucking knife and, you know, shot Abigail Folger. Full of shit. You are cold-blooded killer. Manson has, just because he kept talking and saying all this crazy stuff and had like this guru vibe, but then this crazy side, and it's just more entertaining. Tex Watson's, ordained minister, good boy. You know, I made a mistake when I was a kid. I don't know what I was doing. I regret it. He's also fathered 3 children in the penitentiary.
Yeah, it's disgusting. You should have given those guys a death penalty. I mean, they should give them a death penalty. Put them out of misery. Yeah, killing people is not a mistake. Okay,
right?
That's not a mistake. You know, you got evil and you did it.
I think Manson's been blown. You know, I do believe he was involved in killing ranch hand and aspiring stuntman and actor Shorty Shea. He definitely was involved with that. He probably did go to the house and move stuff around or whatever. But he's really he was always just from what I could see, a two-bit little criminal, petty, cashing fucking, forging people's names on checks, stealing cars. He probably stole bicycles when he was a kid.
You don't think he was trying to start the Helter Skelter? You don't think he said, go there and kill these people, that he wasn't trying to start something,
I'm sure he suggested stuff. He probably put things into their head, but do I believe that there was this whole Helter Skelter? I think Bugliosi, he used a lot of that to get a conviction, Yeah, they're involved in stuff like that. Obviously, this happened. Manson is involved, but, I think that I don't think that's that sophisticated. I don't think he was that sophisticated of an individual to be able to pull that off. If that was really going on, then there has to be more... Some other people involved in the situation, because he wasn't smart enough. I don't believe it. He was an intelligent man. I'm impressed by how much he was able to soak up while he was in the penitentiary from these other criminals and stuff. But he wasn't that intelligent. I mean, listen to the guy talk. I mean, even some of his earlier interviews, he's just regurgitating things that he learned from other little cults that he was involved in, like the what the hell is it? The Church of the Final Judgment or whatever, and they were a prophecy cult that he was involved in. I don't know, probably 6 months or something like that. And he had crossed paths with Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, because Bobby Busalil was friends with those guys and friends with Kenneth Anger, who's an occultist too as well. So there was a lot of that stuff going on in San Francisco during that era. So, and I believe Manson was just regurgitating shit he heard from people around the area. Maybe what he picked up and then brought Christianity into it. It's not really that sophisticated. It really isn't.
The way he rambles in his interviews, it makes me think he's like schizoaffective or paranoid schizophrenic or something. I don't know if he's ever been given those diagnoses, but that's the way he talks.
Well, he's dead now, he died, a couple of years ago now, hasn't it been? And, now they still want to roll him out. I'm surprised they haven't done another special on him, the media has really boosted him up. He's not a Dahmer or a Ted Bundy. He's just a petty criminal that tricked some kids into doing some horrible fucking things, That's really what it comes down to. So, I don't know. I'm fascinated by all of the different pop culture cross references, though. He hung out with Mama Cass, came out to the ranch and hung out. I don't know if members of the Mamas and Papas came out there. He used to play or hang out at the Whiskey A Go Go, so I'm sure he's crossed paths with the Doors and other acts that played there. Dennis Wilson, they lived at Dennis Wilson's house, the drummer of the Beach Boys. This guy, he also hung out with Melcher at the Whiskey A Go Go. Melcher came out to the ranch and listened to him play. So that's why I don't buy into all of Bugliosi's statements, because he knew this. He actually Melcher came to one of the hearings or whatever, as like and he wanted the Mamas and Papas. Actually, Manson had them. He tried to get them subpoenaed for character witnesses for the family. Actually,
That's funny.
so he knew people. He crossed paths with these people probably because of the girls and the LSD. I would say most likely was the reason why he was able to reach. And then maybe that says a lot of things about 1969 Hollywood, how the celebrities were more available to the public.
But that also shows that he had a lot of charisma. I mean, if you're going to kind of insert yourself into those social circles, I mean, he definitely he knew how to work people.
But he could never completely get control of the men, from what I understand. And that's, I interviewed Gary Kent, who shot multiple movies out on Spawn Ranch, for an article coming up in Sleaze Fiend. And I mean, he's basically, his impression of him was that he was just a two-bit criminal too as well. I mean, history shows if you look back far enough, he really is just some lunatic fringe, and then has white supremacist tendencies too as well that he picked up in prison. I mean, it really shows you what happens when you lock up a teenager or a young kid for most of their life, and when you let criminals raise them, basically, this is what you get. He always said that too. He was man's son. He was a product of man, of mankind, of the society. He always said that constantly, and he kind of was,
Not condoning anything attached to Manson, but it is a tragic story. It is a tragic, because he was in his life. For most of his life, especially his young life, he was in prison. I mean, once he got on that track, he really seemed to have no chance to escape that environment. What did you think?
He was not a bad musician, though. I want to add, he wasn't a bad musician. I'm glad that Tarantino didn't use any of his music.
Yeah, I was glad about that too, and I was actually worried that some of it was going to pop up. I was like, oh, is he going to?
Like when the girls were digging around the dumpster and Garbage Dumps plays. Garbage Dump. Yeah.
God. So, what did you think of the Spawn Ranch sequence? I mean, how accurate of a portrayal do you think that was?
Well, here's a little backstory on the actual set. They actually rebuilt it a set, but it wasn't on the actual location of Spawn Ranch, because I guess that road that goes by there is super busy, and it would have been very difficult. Which I understand, it would have been very difficult to block shots and be able to film there.
Well, the ranch itself, wasn't it burned or demolished or something?
Right. But the land is actually a national park or whatever, so they probably could have built their set there. There's nothing there, and I mean, you could have rebuilt it, cleared the land, and kind of molded it to there's enough photographs out there. But they chose to build it at another Western ranch in the area called the Corganville Ranch, which, like, riflemen, a lot of Westerns were shot there. Now, that ranch had burned down too. And back in the late 70s, it was there was a couple fires that swept through that area, and that's what took out Spawn Ranch and quite a few ranches around there, from what I understand. And so, but there's still some bricks from I think it's the church that was there, and that's where they built the barn, because there's a barn sequence that I saw in one of the trailers, but I don't think that they put it in the movie, actually. I think it's a cut scene where they're up in the upper part of the barn or whatever. I think maybe it was a trailer or some clip.
There are scenes that were cut.
Yeah.
I only watched the trailer one time. I mean, I really knew absolutely nothing going into this film. I actually didn't have much hype for it at all. Until
that trailer didn't tell you nothing.
Yeah,
none of them did.
Until people started seeing it and going, "Oh, this is great! This is great!"
Yeah.
Then I was like, "Okay, well, I love Tarantino anyway." But up until then, I was like, "I'm not really in a hurry to go see it,"
Right. But yeah, I mean, they rebuilt it at another famous ranch, Corganville, which you guys can look that ranch up and see everything that was shot there. I'm sure a lot of Gunsmoke and all that stuff was shot. I know Rifleman was shot there because I recognized. Because I looked it up and looked at the old layout and everything, and I mean, it's accurate. I've seen more photos of it. Somebody has a blog up with, actually, I'm guessing they worked on building the sets, because they have all detailed photographs. One thing that's inaccurate is the Randy Starr stuntman sign that's on the side of the building. There's actually some type of like makeshift roof that someone built or whatever out of just lumber probably collected or whatever that was obscuring the sign there. And then I think there's another one up there that has maybe Spawn Ranch info or whatever on it. And so other than that, it wasn't a big deal though. I mean, pretty accurate. I heard that one of the VW Bug that was broke down out there was actually a 71. So, like, someone saw that, you know, oh, that was a 69 or 68. That's a 71. That doesn't even exist yet. So,
yeah, I'm
whatever.
sure
It's a bug, man.
gearheads out there that'll spot that. I wouldn't know. I barely know what I drive. You know, it's got wheels. You know, I know it's red. That's it.
I'm sure there was some cars that came out in 70 or something. And, you know, I brought up that one thing about CC and Company when Sharon goes to see the Wrecking Crew in the theater.
Another great scene, yeah.
And it came out in 70, and I think, like, they had to, unless they shot it, unless it was one of those westerns, biker movies that was shot in, like, 67, like Al Adamson shot a bunch of stuff out on Spawn Ranch and then come out to like the early 70s and it was shot in like 68, 69. So that's possible. Maybe Tarantino knows more. I couldn't find anything about it, so I would assume that it was shooting in 69 and then it came out in 70. So I thought that might be a little inaccurate. Right after that, actually, that music in CC and Company is called CC Rider by Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. They're kind of local Michigan, you know, up there with Bob Seger. I mean, he just didn't have as great of a career as Seger did, but yeah, he's kind of a home state hero. And he was just up here at a festival playing with the lead singer of Rare Earth. But after that, they cut to some movie footage, and then it cuts to actually Mitch Ryder singing. I don't know where the fuck that. I was like, I asked my mom, do he wear like a wig, son? She's like, yep, because my mom had seen him back in 71, maybe 70, 72. So when he was coming up, he used to go to this festival it was played outdoors, and all the big Michigan rock bands back then would play this place. Sometimes like there would be 10 of them. Bob Seger would be there, just like everybody. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Mitch Ryder after that little clip. So, yeah,
I
little.
just thought that was part of the trailer. I mean, is that not the actual CC and Company trailer? I mean, I'm not familiar with it at all.
I don't know. I didn't recognize that footage. Maybe that was from he was singing another song, so it cut from that, and then it cut to some weird footage from a movie, and then it cut to Mitch Ryder singing, because he would do a lot of blues and like, you know, Motown covers and stuff like that. He would actually put them on the albums. Like there might be like 3 original songs, and then he would find some obscure blues, you know, songs and do a cover of them, his rendition though. So I don't know. I've never seen that clip before. Leave it to, you know, Tarantino, man. He's, you know, and he is a visual, he is on a level of Kubrick, not the height of that level, but he's on some kind of level like that, because when we go into George Spawn's house, there's actually a poster for the Herschel Gordon Lewis film, which was shot on Spawn Ranch, called Linda and Abilene. Herschel Gordon Lewis shot a softcore porno under the name Hanson.
In terms of small detail. On the set.
Right, yeah, because when Cliff goes around the corner, he passes some pictures, and it's pictures from the Lone Ranger, and which was shot on Spawn Ranch. This was some of the early stuff, and the other picture I think was from Bonanza, which was also shot on Spawn Ranch. So they were, you know, stills or whatever of the Lone Ranger, and I can't remember what the other one was, but it was another Western.
There's a Zorro picture.
Oh, it was Zorro, that's right.
Yeah.
So it was the Lone Ranger and Zorro, because those were early ones that were shot out there. Yeah.
That goes into one of Tarantino's filmmaking tricks, but I don't want to derail your thought too much.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just, you know, I see the touch. He definitely did his research, because, I mean, before I went and saw the movie, because I heard all this blah, 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 you know, he's not staying accurate, and I said, well, you know what, I think I'm going to, because I know a lot about, from researching Manson, I know a lot about the films that were shot out there. So, and then there's a lot that I don't know. And then this was an educational experience for me. But I had just finished that article maybe like a week and a half ago. I was spending a month on it. Because I was taking my time and trying to really do my research. And yeah, I mean, it was an experience for me pulling this whole thing full circle. By seeing the film and seeing all of his little nods and stuff to that era and that place, and with the westerns and everything, I mean, that was part of Spawn Ranch too. That was the basis of them starting the ranch, you know.
That sequence where Cliff is walking inside the house, it shows one of Tarantino's tricks, which is using a bit of reflexivity. Okay, and it's not necessarily subtext. I mean, a lot of people use subtext and whatnot. But the dialogue, Squeaky says George is blind, and right behind him, I won't act like I made this up. I read this in an article, okay, where it talks about Tarantino's postmodernistic approach to filmmaking. Okay, it says George is blind. Well, right behind him are two characters with their eyes covered, Zorro and the Lone Ranger, and that's a bit of reflexivity, and that just shows he works on all these different levels. You know, I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood almost qualifies as a gothic film. It's a gothic film. It's about Hollywood itself. You know, because gothic films are always part of the setting. You know, the settings are as much of the character are as much a character as the rest of the characters. You know, whether it's something like Robert Wise's The Haunting, where they're in this great house, or you know, modern Gothic works like something from Guillermo del Toro or what have you. You know, Hollywood is so much a character in this. You see the rolling hills and the narrow lanes, and you see the oil rigs and the backgrounds and whatnot. You know, and then of course the streets and the neon lights on the streets. And if you've ever been in Hollywood and up and down those streets, I mean, it makes you instantly feel like you're there. You know, you feel like you're there in that temperature where everything's just 70 degrees or 71 or whatever. You know, it's warm, but it's cool. It feels good. And, you know, everybody around you is beautiful, and they're all into their own thing. And the nightlife is all just going out and partying and dancing and whatnot, which is something I never had much of an affinity for. I'm more into the geekier aspects of Hollywood, of sitting around and drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, though I do neither, and talking about films, which I do.
Right. Well, you brought up a lot of good points, because, you know, this is kind of like the third installment of the Once Upon a Time and Wherever, and you've got Once Upon a Time in the West with Charles Bronson. I don't know if you've seen that film. And then Once Upon a Time in America. Of course. And I feel like this is more, I feel like those films, it was about the location. Like, the location was a character, especially in Once Upon a Time in the West, because these just long, drawn out scenes. And we were talking about how there was a lot of driving, and I think that's kind of his long, drawn out scenes is in the car in modern day America, where it was like guys standing around waiting for the train to come in Once Upon a Time in the West.
That's true. I definitely, it makes me immediately think of American Graffiti, you know, where they're just riding around listening to the radio and
cruising.
They're just cruising around,
and not Al Pacino cruising.
Yeah.
But,
no yellow hankies. No yellow hankies here on MVP Mutant Radio.
I'm sure that was going on in '69, though. I'm sure there was a lot of cruising and gay bars and stuff, you know, with the sexual revolution, you know.
Yeah, there probably
that was going on. Yeah.
That was definitely going on then. And Pacino, it was nice to see him have a little part in this. I saw where one reviewer said his cameo was horrible and that Pacino just does Pacino, and I'm just like, really? I mean, he's just playing a character, you know. I mean, does everything, you know, have to be Academy Award caliber? You know, I mean, it's just a little side character, no big deal.
He was playing the aging version of Tony Montana, because he had an accent. I don't know what it was exactly. I don't know if it was a Spaniard or whatever, but he's the aging Tony Montana. If Tony Montana hadn't went the way of the coke, you know, and became a director.
Well, I enjoyed the subtle humor in his character. He emphasized some things misspoke on a few things. You know, like when he says his wife's name, he says Mrs. Schwartz. Yeah, because he made a point of saying his name wasn't Schwartz, but it was Schwartz. So when he says that, he just he just draws it out just that little bit. And that's stuff that great actors do. Okay, because I guarantee you that wasn't on the page when Tarantino wrote the script. If you've ever seen a Tarantino script, well, the line will be there, Mrs. Schwartz, right? But it's not going to say draw this line
accentuate.
Out. Yeah. It's not going to say that. That's just a great actor, you know, adding that little bit to it. Because Tarantino's scripts are they're very sparse. They're very, very light. You know, he doesn't do a lot of description and a lot of stage direction.
Really?
You know?
You've read one, huh?
Yeah,
Oh.
I've read a few.
I've never read one.
I've studied them when I write my own scripts and whatnot, because you want to try to catch a cadence or a feel for, you know, certain types of films and understand how they work and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, you know, anybody that hates Tarantino, I'm probably not going to change your mind to any. I'll just get thrown into the Tarantino fanboy, you know, bucket or whatever, which I
they're
just
probably not even listening to the show, though.
Yeah, they're not listening to the show. But I don't understand that. I don't understand that criticism, you know, because, you know, I'm sharing my honest response. I came out of this movie feeling great, just like I came out of The Last Jedi feeling like shit, you know. It was like the opposite feeling, you know.
I didn't like Django. I didn't like that. I mentioned this in past podcasts.
Yeah.
As soon as that bar shootout scene and then they played some rap music, I was like, you just took me right out of this fucking movie. It's not a spaghetti western. It's not even. And if you want to talk about rip-offs of that one, no, he was not ripping off Django. He just took the name. He actually ripped off some Fred Williamson films, Boss Nigger and Soul of Nigger Charlie, which is about an escape, you know, a slave, I think a freed slave or whatever that goes to the West. Yeah, that's what he was ripping off, and he didn't do it well. He tried to turn it into this, you know, I didn't like it, you know, so I don't like everything he puts out. Hateful Eight, I bought the DVD. I liked it. I somewhat liked it the first viewing, and then I didn't think it had rewatchability. So, you know, I don't love everything he does.
I'm the same with you on Hateful Eight. Not a huge fan of that. Django I liked, but it's not one I can revisit. You know, in terms of Tarantino films, they're definitely down near the bottom. I think Death Proof is the absolute bottom. It's my least favorite.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people don't actually. Both Planet Terror and Death Proof aren't the greatest movies, but I don't know, man. Planet Terror was a pile of shit. Like, I thought that was going to be, the trailer showed that looking like it was going to be the best one out of all of them, and I ended up liking Death Proof. Not a shit ton, but also we hadn't really. It was been a little while before he had put anything out, so it was kind of interesting. And I don't know, I like the car movies, car exploitation stuff, you know, race movies, and
I like the Death Proof director's cut much more than when I saw it as part of Grindhouse, because it's
I didn't
darker.
see it like that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I saw it in its Grindhouse format. I went and saw it twice because nobody else was. You know, theaters were completely empty. You know. And I was very disappointed the first time because Tarantino says this is a slasher film, and I go into it, and it's not a slasher film at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the director's cut actually makes it a little bit darker and a little bit gorier, I think, and it gets it closer to that mission statement, you know, because those are some of the things I judge you on going into a film. So I'm going to judge you on what did the trailer tell me. You know, what did the poster tell me? What did you as a filmmaker tell me to expect? You told me to expect a slasher film going into this. You know?
I never even heard that.
Yeah, if I'd have never heard that, I might have liked it more.
He actually said that, though?
Yeah, where he uses a car instead of a knife. Yeah.
Oh. Well, you know, here's another thing. I tried to bring up the clip when he was promoting Django on BET. He came in there all talking like he was from the hood. And he was like, oh, yeah, man. And he was jive talking. I was like, it was embarrassing. I was like, you're embarrassing the entire white race. Quentin, come on, stop, please. It's not funny. Jamie Foxx was next to him, and he looked uncomfortable about what he was doing. Yeah. Like, I don't know. So you come on with your black cast onto a black entertainment show, and then you talk like you're a hood rat when everybody knows you don't talk like that. Jamie Foxx doesn't talk like that. These people you're on the stage with aren't talking like that, and I think they burned that clip, or he had them destroyed or something, because I could not find it for the life of me. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen it, man. It's painful. It is painful.
It is.
And I'm like, oh man, that's when I thought, well, Quentin makes great movies, but maybe he is just kind of a douche in person. Maybe I don't want to hang
that
out
with Jackie Brown. I remember all the promotion and everything with that. He was he did little bit of jive, but not much. He was defending, because I remember correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember him and Spike Lee being on a talk show or something back in the mid '90s when Jackie Brown came out, and Spike Lee was calling him on how many times he dropped the N-bomb in the film, and he was defending it, saying, well, I mean, this is Samuel L. Jackson. He's a black character. I wrote black dialogue for a black character and a black actor to speak it, and that's how he justified, because there is a lot of N-bombs dropped in that film. It's probably my favorite Tarantino film out of everything he's done, but he does. Yeah, Jackie Brown, because it's not, a lot of people say, oh, he ripped that one off. No, he did what Kubrick did and based it off of a book. He took a book and he made a film adaptation. This is what old Hollywood would do. Every film Kubrick did was based off of a book, that's what he would do. This is what guys would do back then. And so I don't have any problem with that. As a matter of fact, that should give it more credibility. It's a modern day blaxploitation film without all the bullshit that some of the stuff that wasn't the hokey stuff that made an exploitation film. He kind of took that out and he made a black movie. He did in some respects better than what Spike Lee sometimes produces.
It was an adaptation, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, one adapts stories from one medium to the other, whether it's comic books going to the big screen or or something going from TV to the big screen, or from television to radio, or, what have you. I mean, those are adaptations, or, books get adapted into films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
look at all the Stephen King movies that came from his books.
Nothing wrong with that. That's part of how it works. What bothers me, I don't want to get off on too much of a long tangent on it. So I want to get back to talk about some specific scenes in the film, but we're very deep into remakeism and the culture of remakeism, where now remakeism is originality, where we're 20 years deep into American Idol. And what I mean by remakeism is originality is it's not that we've had generations now that have been brainwashed into thinking it's not about creating your own art or your own stories or your own song, your own music. It's about how do you adapt this other song. And then we see that in terms of filmmakers doing these fan films where everybody wants to do their Star Wars fan film or their Doctor Who fan film or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or Night of the Living Dead. And you see these, and some of them are really well made, but you're just like, and what? This doesn't impress me. You're taking somebody else's work and just telling a different story with it. I'm okay with that.
I know this is one of your pet peeves.
Yeah, I bring it up a lot. It's one thing if you're just a fan doing this, but not as somebody that's saying I'm a filmmaker and I'm trying to tell stories and you should take this seriously. It's one thing if it's just fans doing it. And and also cosplay. It's kind of got to where I hate a lot of cosplay. Now, mind you, I loved cosplay when it really first started in the States. We had our own cosplay and science fiction, fantasy conventions, over the years. But it has kind of grown.
Xena ones, I remember back in the 90s. That was very common.
Well, I mean, you can go way back with all the classic science fiction. People would dress up as Star Trek characters, right? All kinds of stuff. Red Sonja, whatever. Vampirella, all the way up to today. But the problem is today is that some of the cosplayers are, instead of being there to celebrate the art, they're there to celebrate their cosplay. They're making their show about them.
Me and the GOAT, who used to be on EC, for anyone that doesn't know, but and he does run in some. He's got a podcast out right now, the GOAT Show. There's a shameless plug, but
it's okay.
Anyway, Goat turned me on to this one cosplayer chick, very attractive. She would do all kinds of characters, and she like had these fanboys sending her like brand new PlayStations and like buying her stuff. I mean, she had these fanboys wrapped around her finger, man. I tried to get her on EC to interview her because we just thought, wow, this broad's making like a living off this, and I just want to know. And she would not respond back. So yeah.
And they essentially do. I mean, that's what they do. Is they essentially, they make money off of it. They dress up as these characters because they know they can sucker fanboys. It bothers me when they'll clog up the halls at a convention. They're taking pictures in the middle of the hall, and you've got 100 people.
How about the
behind them.
hotties, though? What about the really attractive ones? Does that bother you? The scantily clad ones?
Like I said, I like to see them, but I'm telling you the things that I don't like about it. Like, they'll stop traffic. If you're trying to get somewhere in a convention, don't do that. Go to an area where there's open space and pose for pictures. That's what I'm saying.
Just crash your head into their chest.
Or they will...
Like, whoa, I wound up here. I'm sorry, you're in the way.
They'll block... I've been at conventions, like comic book conventions, where they'll literally block traffic in front of a creator's table, and people can't get to the creator, and they're not paying any attention to the creator. And that's what we're supposed to be here about, is talking to these people who wrote or drew these stories, or created them in some fashion. And here
you're talking about the comic conventions?
And here you are literally obstructing it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I do love a good creative cosplay, but I think here's what I would like to see implemented is I would like to see, one, all cosplays should be handmade. Okay, if you're just buying a Deadpool outfit off of eBay, that shouldn't count as a cosplay. Okay, you should make your own by hand. Okay, and two, I think there should be a limit that you should sign up. That if you're going to come to the convention, you should have to apply beforehand and say who you're coming as, because one Deadpool is enough. We don't need 10,000 of them. If there's going to be 10,000 of anything, we want 10,000 slave Princess Leia's. That's it.
Yeah.
The rest of them, the rest of them we can do without. But
I'd be all right with some more Harley Quinn Suicide Squad, even though a lot of people don't like that. That sounds good. And I guess Margot Robbie here,
I always liked Harley Quinn, and I like the character of Harley Quinn. I did not like Suicide Squad. Did not like Margot Robbie in the film.
Newt didn't like it either. He hated that movie too. Me and Goat did say we enjoyed it. But I'm not a huge Suicide Squad fan or anything. And I read comics. I'm not capes and stuff like that. Superhero stuff. I read more like the horror or like just weird, heavy metal stuff like that. Sci-fi stuff. But yeah, no, I don't follow all that stuff, and I'm not really hardcore into the comic book movie adaptions. It's just getting there's too many of them going on, and everyone's saying, oh, they're great right now, and I'm just not into it. I'm sorry. Nothing against, I'm not going to sit here and shit on anything because I haven't seen half of it, but I'm one of those people. It's like, not interested. I'm just not interested,
There are too many. Marvel did a great thing with their whole Avengers Thanos storyline. But we'll get the train back on track, back to the station.
You could do another podcast about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Margot Robbie, I loved her performance as Sharon Tate. Okay, there's now a famous interaction between Tarantino and I guess a reporter that asked him at Cannes, why did Margot Robbie have so few lines? And he says, I reject your hypothesis. And I just love that. I was like, yeah, it made me fist pump. I'm like, that's right, Tarantino, you reject that dumbass question. Because in cinema, your characters should be defined not by what they say or how many lines they have, but by what they do. Okay, and she practically dances through this whole movie,
Mm-hmm. She dances up the aisle to sit and watch her movie at Wrecking Crew. Yeah, that's right, she does.
That tells you so much about her character. And that scene where she goes to watch Wrecking Crew tells you so much about her character. The way she sits, the way she puts her feet up, and she sits to watch the film, and how she turns and looks at the audience, and she wants to see their reaction. And I identify with that so much, as a filmmaker, because I always and I do host a film festival, by the way, which I'll talk about, Mad Monster Party Film Fest. At the end of this, I always tell my filmmakers when they submit, that you should come and watch your movie with the audience, because that's what it's about. It's about those few moments where you connect with them, where they do jump when you want them to jump, where they do laugh when you want them to laugh. And that's what she's doing. And she's in there and she's taking it in. And it's not about her being, oh, do you recognize me as Sharon Tate? No, it's purely about the art. It's about how they respond to her on the screen. And I will say, I thought that was kind of a nice homage to Sharon Tate, to actually include so much of her in that sequence where you see, because I've never watched Wrecking Crew. I knew that Bruce Lee was a technical advisor on it. It's got Mike Stone as a stunt guy. Mike Stone was originally the ninja in Enter the Ninja, but he got fired because he can't act. He's a great karateka, but he can't act, and he got replaced by Franco Nero at the last minute, right? And Chuck Norris is a stunt guy in it. Joe Lewis, who is another one of Bruce Lee. So I knew all these guys were in it and whatnot, but I've never watched it because I think, the movie's probably garbage. But, but you get to see Sharon Tate's performance, the real Sharon Tate, and she was funny. I mean, she was very physically funny and whatnot. So that was pretty neat. But I really enjoyed Margot Robbie. I mean, she made me fall in love with that fantasy version of Sharon Tate in this film, because she has such just kind of this zest for life and enjoying what she's doing. When I was in Hollywood, I have some family members that actually work in the industry. I wish they would hook me up because I'm the creative, whirlwind of the family, but I'm not one to beg, but, but I mean, that was part of what we did. We went and partied and, and you danced all night. I mean, that's Hollywood. And that's what she did. She just loved life and enjoyed it for every second. And that alone said so much about her character. She didn't have to have a lot of lines, And then, that's set almost side by side with Rick's scene where he's filming Lancer, the pilot cowboy show. And he has that initial breakdown where he can't remember his lines. He's called for a line, which I totally laughed at because if you
how about Timothy Oliphant there? I haven't seen him in a while in anything. He was pretty good.
Which one was he?
He was the guy that came up to him and was like, "Oh yeah, I was going to be in that whatever that Nazi exploitation movie he was in, but I guess you got cast." And then he does that flashback where they actually superimpose DiCaprio into what's the movie? The war
Great
movie.
Escape.
The Great Escape. They superimposed him in his flashback memory of what it would have been like if he would have gotten cast. I thought that was fucking awesome, man.
That was great.
It was seamless.
That was a bravura use of the medium that Quentin Tarantino has, where he'll do things like that, where he'll just jump. He'll show you just this little piece of something that reveals more of the character of Rick, though it may make no other sense in terms of, how film media is normally used, and then he'll do things like use jump cuts and whatnot within the scene, which is something that, who's the director of Breathless? I mean, that was where that kind of came in. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but like I said at the beginning of the show, there's so many references. I'm going to misspeak on some things.
Well, at least you remember the right film, so Godard. Yeah.
So, and then things like where they show the scene from Operation Dynamite, and the car's going over the bridge. They'll freeze frame and it has, the graphic that says cliff ding. I mean, it just breaks with conventions, with conventions. And in a lot of ways, it's helping, continually push the genre forward. Like if you watch TV shows nowadays, a lot of the titles have become more graphic, where they'll put these huge, 3-dimensional block letters, spelling out the name of the city out in the middle of the city. It's not just, it's not just the word superimposed over it, but it's actually part of the image and that kind of thing. And I mean, he just uses the medium to its full potential, and he does it in some ways that Kubrick did, in that he'll include other forms of art. And this was something I remember reading about, how Kubrick would say that, because film is such a young medium, that he likes to connect it with classical art by including classical art. So you'll hear Beethoven within the film, or you'll have this painting in the background. and he puts the real art within the film, and it essentially gives it a rub, to use wrestling terminology, or what they talked about in the beginning of Once Upon a Time in America and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Pacino's telling him, well, you get beat up by the lead guy. He's explaining the rub, where
Right.
you have the old guy that was over, that used to be the hero, he's fading. You have the new hero come and beat him up. You get the rub of popularity off of that. And essentially that's what Kubrick would do. He would rub art off onto his art in order to legitimize it. And Tarantino will do that in a way. He'll have those songs in there. He'll have the authentic one sheets, all throughout Hollywood. He'll have those little ads and whatnot, some of which we'll play some cool stuff here on the show, so you can get a little piece of that here on MVP Mutant Radio.
We're bringing that up. I mean, now we've got the Illustrated Man, Ray Bradbury adaptation radio spot there at the beginning of the film. That was perfect juxtaposition, playing that, because that got you right into the feel of this environment. We do not hear radio spots of movies anymore on the radio. I mean, some people still listen to the dinosaur radio. I mean, I do every now and again, but we don't hear anything like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't even know. I try to make, with EC, I try to make, find as many radio playable trailers as I could where it says the title of the movie in the trailer, to be able to use that and create that vibe. So I caught that immediately and thought it was a beautiful touch. And you're going to play it, right? We found it.
Yep, we'll play it after the break here. But before we take the break, let's talk about the final scene in the film. I mean, how did this play for you? Because as I said earlier, I had this great anxiety going into it the first time because I had fallen in love with these characters. I love Cliff. Cliff's probably my favorite in the movie. And I got to really like Rick and Sharon Tate. And I'm like, are we going to watch them get killed now? I mean, what's going to happen? And then Tarantino does his left turn, which some people are saying he's lazy. Oh, he did this in Inglourious Bastard, where he just goes against history. But then I dug it.
Was very reminiscent of the ending of Death Proof too, as well. I thought, that was very reminiscent of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill Kill.
Yeah,
he really ripped that movie off. If you want to talk about movies that he borrowed from or blatantly stole from, that was one of them for that. But I thought this ending was almost mixing the dog into it. I thought it was almost identical, to the ass kicking scene at the end with Stuntman Mike.
Well, I guess it is if you want to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of very similar, and it's very abrupt, too, which is like how a lot of these exploitation films were, which takes you back to the exploitation film, the way the fight scene and everything was choreographed and cut and everything. It's very like exploitation, like a biker movie or anything from this era. So they did a good job.
But the way Stuntman Mike gets beat up is nowhere near the swerve.
No, it's not. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Know Sharon Tate got killed. We know she was murdered. We know J.C. Green was murdered. We know
somebody
was murdered.
I think it was somebody commented, and maybe they saw an advanced screener because Gary Kent and I can't even remember the other stuntman he used to work with Al Adamson there. They were doing a screening on the 22nd of July. So this actually had some early screenings, apparently. Bud Cardos, that's right. Bud Cardos and Gary Kent did one, and then did a Q&A or whatever in Arizona, Phoenix. And so, but somebody hinted that maybe this is an alternate reality and the events don't happen or whatever. Maybe they were just, thinking in a Tarantino universe already. But so I kind of already saw that coming. But yeah, as soon as the killers, well, here's some inaccuracies. Well, they're not inaccuracies because this is an alternate reality. They give Patricia Krenwinkel, tell her to go. She's going to go back to the car, and she just takes off. That didn't happen.
She did leave, though. She did leave.
No. She just went and hid out in the car. She didn't actually leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Tex climbed up the phone pole to cut the phone wire and stuff, and then climbed over the gate, and then he then murdered what's his name, the kid that was visiting the guy living in the guest house, groundskeeper or whatever. that was trying to drive out. That didn't happen. They didn't walk up the road like that, actually. He went and opened the gate, and then they went in. So I knew that it was different. And then I knew, like, I think they showed a shot of DiCaprio's character's house there, where the garage door or whatever, and I was like, that's not the right house. They're going to the wrong house here. So,
Right.
you know, I kind of saw it coming. There was a little foreshadowing, but there was more foreshadowing. You know, this movie's kind of like you said it's a buddy movie, but it's also like a dog buddy movie, like some of the cop movies.
It is. Brandis is awesome.
You know, so there was some foreshadowing with him behind the Van Nuys drive-in where Cliff lives in a little mobile home or whatever, and there's, you know, a little bit of character development with his dog and their relationship. So
Brandy threatens to steal the movie. She was awesome, the dog. Well, that's the dog's name in the movie, is Brandy. Yeah, she threatens to steal the movie. And she actually won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Cannes did not win the Palme d'Or, but she won the Palme d'Or for best performance by a dog at Cannes. Yeah. And she was awesome, man. I mean, that's why you have a guard dog, because you can just like that, and it'll jump on somebody. You want a 110-pound dog of pure muscle and teeth jumping on somebody. It's exactly what you want. But I will say, in terms of wish fulfillment fantasy, I love it. Because, like I said, I hate the whole Manson thing. I hate the way people glorify it. And I love seeing them just get the crap beat out of them. I was totally down with that.
Yeah, and it's just like it's almost like I brought up, it being not really exactly identical to Death Proof or anything, but just really like, here's the abrupt ending of them beating the fuck out of these people. But in a lot of ways, it's also with the pool and everything. I thought there were some similarities with the ending of Last House on the Left, the brutality, and of course the girl being thrown into the pool and throwing that in there. So maybe there's some Last House influences in this. The dog's great, but then Rick comes out with the flamethrower from the Nazi-exploitation film he had worked on. He still has the flamethrower and just fucking toasts Sadie there in the pool while she's like, her face is all fucked up with shrapnel in it, and very over the top. I wanted to mention, I just brought up the Nazi-exploitation film. I noticed in the trailer that it was like all cleaned up footage, and then when they actually showed the clip, it was aged, 35 millimeter stock. I noticed that will change up. I wasn't expecting it. I actually expected it to be a little bit more cleaned up. I don't know. He didn't really have to do that kind of thing, I guess. But Pacino's character brought up how I thought it was how we watched your films and 35 millimeter. Well, yeah, I guess you could add a 16 millimeter or an 8 millimeter print, but that just seems out of place. It seems, that seems significant now where there's, that's not going on, but not for that period. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you're in movies. Of course, that's how you fucking viewed it.
It didn't stand out as a big problem for me, because I just thought, not a lot of people had their own projection systems. He's just explaining it. That was just how I took it. It was just,
okay.
Just a total throwaway moment. But yeah.
But then he grabs it. It cuts to the shot of him grabbing the 35 millimeter. I think it says 35 millimeter on the canister. Maybe that's just Tarantino being like, film will last forever. Well, the screening I saw, they didn't have a 35 millimeter print. Sadly, it's fully changed over to digital now, and I know he said he'll never do a film in digital. It'll always be 35 millimeter, and
which if he only does one more, that's probably why.
It's perfect timing. Yeah, he should make it the last one he does. I'm guessing it's going to be this Kill Bill. I don't
3.
know why. God.
Oh, come on! I love Kill Bill, man.
I like Kill Bill Volume. That's another thing. Everybody likes Volume 1 so much. I like Volume 2. Everyone says that one sucks or whatever. And then other people say, I just look at it as a whole movie. Yeah, it's the spaghetti western. That was more fun to me, I guess. And I just looking at it as like his last film. I don't know. You've already kind of done that a lot. You've already done it twice. Why can't we get another Once Upon a Time and fucking whatever. Like, do another one of these. Do something else where you fucking look at another era. I mean, maybe it'll seem redundant, but I think people would like to see another Once Upon a Time from him. God, you know?
Yeah, after this, I would. That was how I came out of this. I was thinking, I want to see more of Rick and Cliff, But to Kill Bill, I don't have a problem with it because he does have an organic extension to the story. He always had the idea for the third one of the little girl growing up and coming back to kill the bride.
With the foreshadowing and stuff.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to wait until that actress was old enough to, actually be the appropriate age to pull it off. So I'm okay with that. I mean, he has an organic extension for the story. So yeah, so go ahead and do it. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch anything Tarantino does. I mean, won't love him, like I said. There are several that I don't love. And I mean, his segment in 4 Rooms I thought was just lame.
I loved it. It's actually because I remember watching the Alfred Hitchcock episode back in the early '90s when Nick at Night used to rerun them, and that was like that and A Lamb to Slaughter are my favorite Alfred Hitchcock. Is that the one he based that on? So yeah, I mean I liked it actually, but then again I'd seen the episode, so it was fun. And Bruce Willis was the funniest fucking character of that whole thing. What am I gonna do? Like fucking go out, drive home, and hit some kid riding like his bike? It's like the balls just dropped. Like it's New Year's Eve. Like what kid's riding his bike? It just seems. I just love the dialogue. Like that'd be great, Eileen. I'm drunk and I'd hit some kid riding his bike. Like
I don't even remember, dude. I watched it once and I put it out of my head. But
I as a whole, I don't think the whole thing is great, but I did like his segment, so I'm not gonna shit on it. I guess it's better than his ER episodes, isn't it, or whatever?
I don't know. I wouldn't watch those.
I think he did 1 or 2. I saw the first one because they hyped it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's get back to Tarantino because one thing people talk about, and we've said it a couple times, saying that he rips off stuff, and in some ways he does. But I'll say that this is in part his postmodern approach. Postmodern being, we've seen all the tricks in cinema by the time this has all come around. Okay, these are postmodern in that they're usually characters who know about film. They know about the history of film. They know about television. They know about the history of television, and those things, we didn't have those in the earlier years of television and film. They weren't, referencing, Charlie Chaplin or whatever, the stuff that came before. It was, just their world. Okay. But I will say, I think, he wears his influence on his sleeve, and he does it in a way that gives it new meaning. One of my favorite writers is Jeff Klock, Dr. Jeff Klock. And I love the guy. He's actually come on the episode on MVP Mutant Radio a few times to talk about science fiction films and whatnot. But he broke down the Kill Bill films, and he talked about how Tarantino repurposes his influence in those films and whatnot. And that's really fascinating to me. So to me, there is a big difference between just blatantly ripping something off, which, I mean, sometimes, sure, he probably does just rip things off, where you got this shot and you're kind of recreating this shot. But who doesn't do that? Like what filmmaker that's shooting something in 1-point perspective isn't ripping off Stanley Kubrick?
Remember that? Remember Kubrick? Remember I sent you that clip, or that clip was going around of that film from the 1920s that Kubrick ripped off for the Jack hacking through the door in Shining. It was like identical.
Yeah,
he
right.
Totally ripped it off. The guy was hacking through a door with an axe, and he had to have seen it. Like, who the fuck else would have seen that movie but Kubrick? I mean, it was probably, he was, as a kid, he probably loved it. It was one of his favorite movies. He's always talked about, a lot of the, like, Romero, and I heard Kubrick talking about Howard Hawks films, and Carpenter too as well. Those 3 guys were big fans of the Howard Hawks films. So you've got to think, and obviously I haven't seen all the Howard Hawks films, but these guys did, and who knows what they ripped off from. I mean, Jesus Christ, Carpenter remade The Thing. That was a Howard Hawks film. Like, come on, it wasn't a shot-for-shot remake, thank God. I mean, I don't know?
Yeah, and Assault on Precinct 13 is Rio Bravo's remade, essentially.
Right. It's so, yeah, well, that's a remake too, right? Yeah.
But
I mean, in a sense.
But it wears its influence on its sleeve, like Tarantino, and it repurposes it. It gives it new definition and new meaning, and it also honors the art that comes before it. It's in very much in the same manner as we were talking about Kubrick earlier, including classical art within his films. And Tarantino, he does try to pay homage. Like, he'll bring in all these old character actors and give them a spot here and there. Like I saw in
Bruce
the credits.
Stern.
Yeah, I saw in
there
the
was a ton of
credits
people.
that Martin Cove was there. I was like, hey, Martin Cove, I didn't even see him, but I saw Clu Gulager in there. I was like, Clu.
Yeah, I heard he was in it. What did he play? Was
Clue.
he
He's in the bookstore.
That was Clue?
Yeah.
Wow, he's really aged now. Yeah, he was even Clue Gallagher was even in a bunch of these like old westerns. He was in a bunch of episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents when he was young. I mean, this is full circle for that guy because
Yeah, it's Gulager.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Gallagher's the comedian that smashed the water.
Right. Yeah, no, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's great though. I knew I had read that he was in it, but I couldn't point out what his role was. So
to me, in that way, that's part of Tarantino giving back to his influences.
Yeah, and Jackie Brown, he had Sid Haig, and I'm kind of glad, because Rob Zombie has used the hell out of Sid, over the years, but Tarantino didn't. He had him as the judge and Jackie Brown, and that was kind of it. Maybe they didn't gel right or something like that,
Well, he might have just not had a part for him. I mean, it seems like Tarantino will have somebody in mind for his parts. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, you kind of look at people like, this is the bad thing about being friends with people that, like actors that you can put in your project, is because sometimes you'll write something and then you're talking to one of your friends and they'll say, oh yeah, like I'd like to audition for it. And instantly in your head you go, well, would they be right? And you're like, no, I don't think they would be right. So instantly you're dropped into the asshole bucket. It's like, and it's not like you can't act or whatever. It's just that I don't see you in this part, I just saw it for some different type of person. But
I know some people said that they thought that this was based off of Gary Kent, which in a lot of ways, yeah, because he was a stuntman and worked out there and he worked on a lot of these westerns too. He worked on couple western shows. I think he worked on more that he wasn't credited on. And this is a real ode to those guys that didn't generally get credits, because I read that in old Hollywood, the actors wanted everyone to think that they did the stunts, so they wouldn't mention they wouldn't even credit a stunt man in some of these old TV shows too. So, yes, in a lot of ways, yes, it's somewhat of Gary Kent's story. And I've heard people say that Gary Kent should have played George Spahn. As little of a part as it was, I don't think it would have made a difference, and I think that it would have been cool. But Bruce Stern is old Hollywood, from this era, late 60s actor. He was in so much Corman,
Roger
like exploitation, Wild Angels,
exactly.
Dude. Yeah, man. So either one of those guys would have been great to put in there. I guess maybe he went. I mean, originally it was Burt Reynolds was supposed to play the role to begin with. Yeah. So obviously, Bruce Stern wasn't the first go-to. But maybe he picked Bruce because he felt Bruce was more active in Hollywood than Gary Kent, I guess, was. Because Gary was, he was on a lot of these bike films, Savage 7, and he was in the Psych Out with Jack Nicholson, so.
Well, I mean, did Gary Kent, did he read for the part? I mean, and I don't know his full story. I mean, it probably mirrors a lot of stunt guys' story that was on there.
It's not Cliff, exactly. A lot of people think that it's actually based off of Burt Reynolds and his stunt man, which makes a lot of sense now that, he was cast as George Spahn, that he based the character. And I don't know a lot about Burt Reynolds and his stunt man, because I know Burt Reynolds did a lot of his a lot of stunts too himself, didn't he? And didn't he work as a stuntman too as well in Hollywood, and old Hollywood, Motor Horses? I mean, Kurt Russell, he was another stunt guy, an early Western guy too. He's in this. that's kind of, I mean, I've heard him talk and said, you know, like he got on TV because he could fall off a horse and he was a kid, and not a lot of kids could fucking do that. So he was like a child stunt guy, you know. So, but yeah, I think this is really an ode to all of those guys.
Right.
And yeah, it would have been cool to see Gary, because I know he does do a little bit, but yeah, he isn't as active in Hollywood. And yeah, I mean, it would make sense that you would have maybe cast him because he did work on the ranch. And Gary told a story on a recent podcast with 42nd Street Pete that he said he met Quentin, and I think in Austin. It was probably at one of those draft house showings or something. And I think the coordinator, organizer, or whatever, said, yeah, Tarantino wants to meet you. And I think they met up somewhere, and he sat down and like talked to him for like a few hours and asked him about the old days of Hollywood and stuff. So, and it was like 5-6 years ago, and he was working on the script for 5 years. So I'm pretty sure he talked to Gary Kent for some basis for this film.
Well,
and Gary Kent also wrote an autobiography detailing his work and shooting on Spawn Ranch and his own personal encounters with the Manson family, because he's been talking about it for the past 5 years on various podcasts. And then his autobiography, which is Shadows and Light, something or other. You just type in Gary Kent autobiography, it should come up. I think there's 2 press printings of it out, but I mean, he talks about it in there too as well. So, I mean, I
probably did take a lot of influence from it then, but
he had to have. Yeah, but I don't. It doesn't sound like Gary's sour about the situation. Him and Bud Cardos, which are both stuntmen that worked on the ranch, they got to do a Q&A on the Draft House screening in Phoenix. I mean, obviously that was maybe organized by Tarantino or someone, you know, in that camp. They're doing a pre-screening, and they invited these guys out to do that. I mean, someone knows what's going on and is aware. So, you know, I don't. Gary didn't seem like, he seemed like any kind of blessing of getting out there and still being active, because I think he's in his 70s, you know, is better than nothing and sitting in his house, you know. So
yeah, sure.
And I talked to him for the article, you know, and he was happy as a clam to be, you know, talking about this and telling his story and stuff. And
there you go. Well, that's probably a good way to bring this segment to a close. You know, give a little respect to Gary Kent. If he did have influence on the story, then so be it, folks. You know, seek him out. Especially, I know he's done several interviews with our buddy 42nd Street Pete.
He was on J-Dog's old podcast too. They interviewed him on Canadian Fear Rocks there too as well one time. I think they talked to him about The Forest though, because he was he did stunts and effects on that film, so they wanted to talk to him about that. I've never seen The Forest, sad to say, but
okay, well, cool. Well, go and check it out. Even with the things that I had problems with this film, I still have to give it a 10 out of 10 screams on the Streebo Screamometer, you know, or 5 out of 5 stars. You know, it definitely ranks up there in my top 3 favorite Quentin Tarantino films, which I think bounces around between Reservoir Dogs and Kill Bill and now Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well, I give it 10 cum stains on the couch.
This is MVP After Dark, after all.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry. I forgot we weren't doing that show. My bad.
It's okay.
My sleazy ways creeping in there. But no, seriously, this is a good movie. I don't ever go... The last movie I went and saw was that last Halloween, and it was a fucking catastrophe. And before that, I hadn't seen anything in a while in theaters, because I just stopped wasting my money, because I'm always disappointed. And I did go into this film with low expectations, because I didn't like Hateful Eight or Django, so I wasn't expecting it. And you really do, if it's an overhyped movie, just go in with low expectations and you'll love it. You will, especially if you think it's content you'd be interested in. Just go in with low expectations and you'll never be disappointed, and that's kind of how I've been doing modern movie watching, because I watch a lot of retro stuff, mostly old movies and TV shows is what I focus my energies on. So
sure, well, everybody does that once you get to a certain age, but yeah, so we'll bring this segment to a close. We'll take a short break. We'll play some of those cool clips for you, and then Streebo and Bat32 will be back to talk about more things: Exploited Cinema, Sleaze Fiend Magazine, Mad Monster Party Film Festival, and much, much more right here on MVP Mutant Radio.
Hi, I'm Mike White.
And I'm Rob St. Mary.
And we're the hosts of the Projection Booth podcast.
If you haven't heard of the Projection Booth, that's okay.
But we think it's time that you have.
We've been doing this for over 3 years now.
And we think we're doing a pretty good show.
Every week we look at a different film and put it in context.
We try to bring you interviews with the people behind the films.
Or experts on a subject matter covered in the film.
We don't specialize in any one particular genre or type of film.
We try to examine every aspect of cinema.
From every corner of the globe.
Even at 3 years, we barely just scratched the surface.
But we're ready. We're ready for you to listen to us.
That's right. Now's the time to give us a shot.
Download us through our free smartphone app.
Or through Stitcher, iTunes, Geek Juice Radio, Jackalope.
Or our website.
Projection-booth.com.
We'll keep making great shows.
Now it's your turn to listen to them.
Hours ago, minutes ago, these men were behind barbed wire, locked in the strongest cage that man could devise. These men plotted. These men dared. These men lived. The Great Escape. This was the camp. These were the staggering odds.
This is a new camp. It has been built to hold you and your men. It is organized to incorporate all we have learned of security measures. We have in effect put all our rotten eggs in one basket. And we intend to watch this basket carefully.
Very wise.
There will be no escapes from this camp.
How many are you taking out? 250? 250? Yeah. You're crazy. You ought to be locked up. You too. 250 guys just walking down the road just like that.
These were the men. Hiltz, the Cooler King, who broke every rule as fast as the Germans made them. Hendley, the Scrounger. He'd come up with a baby elephant if the men needed one.
Hey, you throw it out here! Turn the water out!
Where's your kit?
This is it. The rest was confiscated in the last shakedown. The goons didn't appreciate some of my more personal items.
Such as Bartlett, Big X, the prime mover behind this true, incredible story. He held their lives in the palm of his hand. Ramsey, the planner, ready to take the rap for every man in the camp. Danny, the Tunnel King. He dug 16 escape tunnels in 16 different prisons. And the Germans still have him. Sedgwick, the manufacturer. He can make anything out of anything else. And make it work. These were the reckless, defiant men. These men plotted. These men dared. These men lived. The Great Escape. The great drama, the great entertainment, the great adventure begins with The Great Escape.
MVP Mutant Radio is a proud member of the Mad Monster Radio Network.
Don't dare stare at the illustrated men.
There are fearful pictures on his skin, but the most fearful thing is tattooed on his soul. The Illustrated Man, Ray Bradbury's masterpiece of the supernatural, an incredible journey to the outer limits of imagination. The Illustrated Man, starring Rod Steiger and Claire Bloom, from Warner Brothers 7 Arts in Technicolor. This picture is rated M.
And now playing exclusively at Pacific's Pickwood Theater in Wendy Westwood.
You're listening to MVP Mutant Radio. Here's Streebo.
Welcome back, my mutant children. Won't be long before you have to put your seat backs upright, as we will bring the Mutantville mothership around for a landing. But before I do that, we're going to talk a little bit more with our special guest, Bat32 of Exploited Cinema and Sleeves Fiend Magazine. Find out what all he's been going up to. Oh, before we leave, I do want to get your rankings of Tarantino films, if you want to give out your top 3 or whatever. Because I was curious about that, because you said Jackie Brown is your favorite, which I do like Jackie Brown. I saw Jackie Brown in the theater. I was not blown away by it. I was like, because it was very different from Pulp Fiction and Natural Born Killers, which had preceded it. And I was not blown away by it, but I've grown to like it more over the years. But it's kind of in the middle of my Tarantino ratings,
Are we including the stuff he wrote then?
I do.
Okay. Well, then that changes it up for me. Then, yeah, Jackie Brown would be number 1. Natural Born Killers would be number 2. And I guess Inglourious would be number 3, although that one grew on me because when I first saw it, I didn't get into it, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I more appreciated it because I've never seen and it was a Nazi-exploitation film that was extremely accurate with actual German dialogue, which you never saw that in any, even the height of, Nazi exploitation with Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS shooting on the old Hogan's Heroes set, and there was no German language being spoken, so my hats are off to you, Quentin, for that nice little touch. So, but that caught me off guard. I didn't know we were going to do that. I had to think quick on that one.
Well, that's a good answer. Yeah, Inglourious is not one of my favorites. I don't know why it's not. I don't dislike it or anything. It's just one I never revisit, really. I probably should. Kind of like Django Unchained. I just don't revisit that after I saw it in the theater.
I never did either.
Yeah. I have the Blu-ray, but I just never watch it.
Watch it.
Yeah, well, I mean, with great collectors and being a filmmaker or an aspiring filmmaker or whatever, I mean, I collect Blu-rays. I like to have their work. So if I'm working on something and if it's in a certain milieu or setting, I might go and study somebody's work. Like Kubrick or whatever. If I'm doing science fiction, I want to go watch 2001. If I'm working on a horror film, I'm going to study The Shining. You can believe that. To try to see how they manipulate the audience. But hey, we've talked enough about me, and we've talked enough about QT. So anybody that's sticking around for this segment will get to hear more about the Bat32. What's going on with Sleeves Fiend Magazine? Like how I brought all that together.
Yeah. Well, it's you said I was a special guest. I'm just an old podcaster from the golden days. I guess it's a golden age now, or something like that. Or Newt told me. Newt told me I'm from the Silver Age, actually, because he named a bunch of podcasts that were the Golden Age. Dead Pit and Rue Morgue Radio, I think. Sure.
Yeah.
Who else? Fangoria.
That were earlier on. Yeah, Dead Pit was definitely one of the first. So I will mention here, MVP Mutant Radio, that we did audio recordings. We just did not call it a podcast. As far back as 2003 and 2004, that we would just listen to ourselves and pass back and forth.
But your first public podcast was Exploited Cinema, wasn't it?
That was the first time I was ever invited on. I called into Dead Pit a couple times. I don't mind shouting out. Because
me too.
I really like Wes and CK. And although Aaron, for whatever reason, always hated me, but whatever, it's cool. I really like Wes, and I wish him the best. Right now, he's got a lot of family issues going on where his parents just passed away. So my heart really goes out to the guy. And it's a shame to see Dead Pit come to an end over the years. I really enjoyed them. But yeah, you had early guys that were really promoting podcasts as podcasts and really kind of carrying the banner for years, and they did a great job just creating like a little community. I mean, you look at how many little podcasts kind of spun off out of that, you know, you had Canadian Ferox. Well, those guys were on Dead Pit before they ever had Canadian Ferox. And then, you know, Exploited Cinema was a continuation of Canadian Ferox. And then you invited me on that awesome Halloween episode. And that was my first time ever being on as a guest.
Weren't you? I could have sworn I had you on to promote with Mutisha, wasn't it? Didn't you? Wasn't that before that? Could have sworn I had an MVP episode where J-Dog wasn't available, and I asked you if you wanted to join in, but I don't remember if
after
that
that,
was
because
after.
the Halloween episode was definitely my first. I mean, because I watched all those movies because I hadn't seen most of them. I had no idea what most of them were, so I had to go and track them all down. And then I made notes for all. I was like, it's like they're inviting me on. I got to know what I'm talking about.
And we weren't even planning a huge show like that, but then you said you had taken notes, so we were like, well, fuck, I guess we're going to need to do it. And then we were like, we're going to keep these short, but they ended up turning into, like, what, 45-minute long reviews, and I don't even know if all those movies deserve that long of time to talk about them, but we did. I'm sure the filmmakers out there were probably like, finally, someone's giving my movie credit.
Yeah, right.
All these years.
The thing that was fun to me about that was you made me, because of the selection of films, you made me look at some films I wouldn't normally watch. Okay, because
Me too.
Because like I said, you know, I'll go and study Kubrick or whatever. I mean, you have this tendency to kind of want to study the high art end or whatever, or we can just, any one of us can kind of get bottlenecked into our favorites. So it's good to have somebody say, well, hey, look over here for a little while, and you look over and it expands your horizons somewhat. And it really did that. I really enjoyed just watching all those crazy films, you know, it just kind of expanded my mind in a different direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was great, and you know, we've had a nice friendship here, and with the show, and me coming on your podcast, and you know, later on my second co-host Dale Roy, and we've all just become real good film buddies, and it's really cool to be, you know, we don't all agree on everything, and I know you don't spend a lot of your spare time watching shitty pornos or stuff like that, like I spend my time watching another exploitation. But you know, if I always respected you, because if you were ever asked to look at something, even if it wasn't something you were necessarily interested in, you would give it your time and stuff, and always have something at least good to say about it. So I've always respected that and appreciated that. So. But, yeah, no, we stopped doing the show. I know me and Dale were on, and we've kind of given you an update, and then we got picked up by Revival House Network, which is the Behind the Mask guys. We used to promote them a lot on the show, and they started up their own little podcast network, which they have a YouTube channel, and then they're on Spotify and Stitcher and iTunes and all these new outlets. I mean, I just remember iTunes and wherever you sent your feed, and maybe if you had a website and you promoted on Facebook, and people were starting to get into Twitter, but I wouldn't, you know, jump over to the Twitter because I just...
All the places you can find MVP Mutant Radio, by the way. And Twitter,
are you on all those? Really?
Yeah.
Are you on Stitcher and Spotify? Okay.
Yeah.
Spotify, I vaguely remember, but Stitcher, I think, is new to me. I think Spotify's been around.
MVP Mutant Radio is on all those. Stitcher has been around for a while. There was a time when I would do these seminars with these guys doing cutting-edge social media stuff, and I would get tips from them. So I got onto Twitter almost when it started. When I opened the MVP Twitter account, it was MVP. I had MVP. Those 3 letters.
Yeah.
That's how early we got onto it. We got hacked and somebody stole MVP from us.
Really?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I went through this whole thing with Twitter telling them, like, hey, this guy stole our sign. He hacked us and essentially hacked us, changed our name, and then took MVP.
Because he wanted it for something.
Yeah, and Twitter's response was, well, you changed your name, so they took it. I mean, that's kind of Twitter's response to everything. They don't care about anything. And that's that's kind of an example of like the technical snafus that you just kind of hit in the road that just knock the wind out of you. You know, I mean, you're
Yeah.
trying and you're doing all this stuff, and you get a little bit ahead of the curve, and you have just these insidious things happen. You know, like we've maintained Mutantville.com for, 15, 16 years now. And we'll get hacked by Chinese hackers. You know, I'll go there and there'll be all these Chinese stuff on the page.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The website will just disappear overnight sometimes. I mean, just all these things that'll happen, and it's like, I'm a storyteller. I just want to tell stories. That's all I want to do.
Should tell a story about that. Write a story about how you try to start up a production. But
well, we're
thwarted.
We're nearing the twilight years of MVP because everybody's kind of moving on. So we're actually talking about doing a documentary and going back and going through all of our behind the scenes stuff and everything we've done, and using clips of all the people we've talked to, George Romero, John Carpenter, me arguing with Bruce Campbell about people making original horror films and whatnot, and actually doing a documentary and just talking about all of it. We can't call it the rise and fall of Mutantville Productions because there was no rise. So I've been trying to figure out, okay, should we call it failing upward? I don't know. I mean, it's just the continual fall. I have no idea what to call it, but we're actually talking about doing a documentary now as kind of our swan song. Though we're going to do a couple more shorts so we can do Tales from Mutantville Volume 2.
So, are you, with the documentary, it's going to be all on that third volume then? Is that what you're trying to do, or?
That'll be something totally separate, and I'll probably just put it on YouTube. It'll probably just be on YouTube, just so people can just watch it. They'll be like, well, who the hell are you? But it'll be interesting because we have behind-the-scenes footage of us shooting from 16 years ago. We have behind-the-scenes footage of everything we've done. We've documented it all along the way.
American movies about some nobody, and he became a somebody because of, that documentary, independent filmmaker. I love that.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Borchardt. Man, I'm a huge Mark Borchardt fan. I mean, that guy was...
Dude, me too.
He was definitely a big influence on me.
Coven. Me and my buddy showed me that he had rented it. He said, he loves documentaries. He loves film in general, but he's like, we were both aspiring. This is when I was like a teenager. He's a little bit older than me, and I remember he'd rented it, on VHS, and we sat down and watched it, and I was like, this guy's great. What the fuck? How's this guy not? They showed clips and stuff, but we could never track the DVD down for like the longest time that had the short film on it, and I didn't see it till. Probably when I moved down to Nashville, somebody finally uploaded it on YouTube, and I was able to finally see it, Coven. So, and it's not a bad film. It's not.
It's not bad. It has some good images in it. It has some good.
16 millimeter. He shot it on. He could blow that thing up to 35, and he could have expanded on it too. He could have made I think he could have made a feature length film out of it. So
Mark's story is so inspirational because he's indomitable, man. I mean, every problem he came up against, he just continued on. Like there's one scene where they're shooting in front of this gate with a demolished building behind them, and you don't know this unless you listen to the commentary, okay? But they were going to shoot in a building, and when they got there, it was demolished. I've never had that happen. Okay, I've had a lot of stuff happen on set and mishaps, and you have to turn right when you were planning to go left. But I've never gone to a location and it be totally demolished. And he was going to shoot for Northwestern, and because that building was demolished, that's why he said, man, I'm going to finish Coven, man. And he actually just announced on Facebook last month that he's going to do Coven 2.
Oh, cool. Wow. That's awesome. I remember a few years after the documentary, maybe it was like, because that documentary came out in 98, 99, wasn't it?
Yes.
Late 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember in the early 2000s, he had he had some offices, and he would do these little like webcasts, little videos in his office where he'd be talking. And I remember watching those and stuff and being like, wow. And he was in the, what was it, Cabin Fever 2 film too as well. He played the guy that picked the infected kid up, and his role was great in it. And I think it was like a pickup truck. And it's just, it's like, oh, hey, it's the guy from American Movie. Like,
he's had some bit parts here and there. It's pretty cool. You can actually call his buddy He has like his phone listed online, so you can call
His buddy Mike.
Yeah,
the
so
guy
you can actually call him and talk to him, or leave him a message and try to get him to call you back.
I saw an interview with Mike, or this little thing where he's hanging out at a record store. I want to say maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, where he was like hanging. He had like a girlfriend and stuff, and he seemed like, he seemed slow, like from the drugs. He probably fucked himself up one night. Maybe he had a minor stroke from drinking. He doesn't even know it or something, and
Dude,
whatever. But he seems like he seems like a really nice guy though, and not a bad guitar player, even though he just plays Black Sabbath songs and says they're his, but you know.
Well, he did those good covers of Metallica, which I really enjoyed. So that was
cool. Yeah, he's not a bad guitar strummer and stuff. So I wish those guys would have gone on and got was able to make like something a little bit bigger. And I know it's sad he never really did get to do that, but like problems I see with like another great independent filmmaker, Jim Van Bebber, is they both share the same problem, which is hitting that fucking bottle. You put that fucking bottle down, man, to be able to do anything. It's stifling your creativity, and you can't even if it's not stifling the creative aspects, people aren't going to want to work with you when you're getting loaded. They're just not interested, and it's not attractive. It's hard to deal with somebody like that, and then this is supposed to be the leader, and he's fucked right up. I remember we interviewed Mark Pittman, and on Deadbeat at Dawn, Jim. It didn't sound like Jim was drinking that heavily, but he did comment that they smoked a lot of marijuana, and I think Jim probably should smoke weed when he's directing and not drink, because the extras, all the actors and stuff, even kind of hint at that. That was the problem with Manson Family trying to get finished, and I would guess that's probably Mark's problem. The why he has trouble getting anything even off the ground is, I don't know if he drinks now, but it seemed like that was his number one problem in American movie was he's got a drinking problem.
Well, I'm going to tell it to you like this: drinking on set is a problem, or going into something altered is a problem. Being stoned on set is a problem. We had some actors stoned on set a few times. I never do it. When I go on set, I make sure my head is clear. Period. Yeah. I try to go to bed early the night before, so I'm rested.
Eat a good breakfast, maybe.
I eat a huge breakfast to make sure I've got energy to go. Mm-hmm. And I make sure my head is clear, because you have to be able to think clearly and deal with all these problems that are going to arise. Now, over the years, you'll hear stories of people doing drugs. Like usually it's connected to an actual scene where the characters are doing drugs. Like Friday the 13th Part 4. What's his name? The guy who smokes a joint. He really smoked a joint before he pretended to smoke a joint, and he's
Easy Rider. They're all smoking
Easy
weed
Rider.
in the scene.
Good example. Roger Corman did LSD before they filmed The Trip, because he wanted to understand.
But Bruce Stern wouldn't do it. Everybody else did it, but Bruce Stern wouldn't do it. He's too straight.
He's too much of a straight edge, but that's cool. So you've got to be clear-headed on set.
In Psych Out, though, I will say he plays like an acid freaked out guy, and he did a really good performance. And he says, they were like, were you on acid? He's like, never done this stuff. I've never smoked weed either. I'm like, wow, dude. So he's not a bad actor either. Yeah. But yeah,
imagine how much of a downer at parties he was in the 60s. I mean, my God.
Right? That's why I thought he was a horrible choice for George Spahn. This guy just never partied. You need a real fucking hippie turned old man in there, I'm sure Burt Reynolds did acid though, so that was a good first choice. I'm sure he tried it at least once,
Yeah, that's funny. So the reason I mentioned Mad Monster Party is because I just opened the call for entries for the Mad Monster Party Film Festival this week. So the convention is not until next February 21st through the 23rd, I believe, of 2020. But I opened the call for entries. See, I have to begin, screening, films, short films, full-length features, all that. And I start building the film list for next year. So I have to start that.
Do you get a lot of movies usually?
I'm going to tell you what. I just joined Film Freeway for the first time last year, and I got a ton of movies, because you'll get submissions from all across the world. And I was actually kind of surprised by it. And because of that, the submissions were incredible. Film Freeway is a great resource. And I put my last short that we shot, I just hit the mic there. I put my last short on there, The Blind Eye Looks Within, and use that to submit to film festivals as well. And it's such a great tool for people. Mark Borchard actually shot an ad for it explaining, this is great for filmmakers, man. You put your movie on there, it's great. You just send it out. Now, mind you, you have to pay to use it. You don't pay a fee to use Film Freeway, but what you do is you have to pay entry fees to join all these film fests. And if you put your festival on there, you have to charge people. So I did the fest for 7 years for absolutely free. I didn't charge people. Yeah, I didn't charge people anything. I did it completely free. Everything came out of my pocket. I paid for everything to promote it. Any kind of ads that we put together, I built myself. Any kind of trophies we had, I went and paid for out of pocket. And then I said, well, I want to get on Film Freeway because I want to have the wider audience. And then, I had to start charging. So I had to do an entry fee. But right now the entry fee is only $10. So if you take advantage of the early entry fee, it's only $10. And plus I usually give people, I give them passes for everybody they need to get into the show, because as a filmmaker, it's so hard to get your film shown somewhere, and then you get accepted to a festival, and they'll go, okay, well, here's 2 passes for you so you can come. Well, then you've got a lead actor, you've got a lead actress, you've got and then they've got a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or husband and wife, and then you've got the special effects guy wants to come, and this guy that held the mic wants to come. And you wind up having 10 people that want to come. And then if you have to turn to them and say, well, you have to pay $20 each to get in, it's a total bummer. So I don't do that to people.
What about pornographic films? Do you ever?
I hook them up.
Do you? Yeah.
No. Well, pornographic. I'm mixing my answers here, but
okay.
I hook the filmmakers up is what I want to say. I look out for people. I get them out to the show. I get them in, and I give them an opportunity. Is all. Okay, so that because their film is going to be shown there, and people that should like their film are there. Okay, so this gives them that chance to sit in the audience and connect with them, to get that all-important feedback of seeing how the audience is going to respond to your film. Okay, and then, we let everybody do a little short Q&A after the film. So, you get a chance to take questions, and you can answer them and whatnot. And to me, those are the most important parts of being a filmmaker, no matter what stage of your career that you're in, because you continually learn from you learn from the audience, and you continually learn about your craft. As far as porn goes, no, I have to be careful. Okay.
So do you get submissions
I have done things that are very, very graphic. Okay. I've shown some films that are very, very graphic. I usually put them very late in the late night spots. Okay. Like one year we played Bill Zebub's Ant Farm Dickhole. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's about a guy who has ants come out of his dick hole. That's why it's called Ant Farm Dickhole. Yeah, unfortunately, Bill doesn't submit things anymore because I gave him a really harsh critique of one of his films one time.
Was it that film?
He didn't take it too well. No, but I told him I never thought I would say this, but this is a worse film than Ant Farm Dickhole. I was pretty brutal. But I thought he deserved it because his films are too gimmicky, and I was like, dude, this is just lazy, man. You gotta try harder. But anyway, he didn't care for that. And then some films are pretty close to being graphic. Like I can't show pornography. I mean, we could get the convention shut down.
Right, that's breaking certain obscenity.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the South, it's a little bit different than it is in the North. And you brought that up to me about that guy I was telling you about making those snuff style like films, and he was like, "I bet you they can't send it to Mississippi." And I was like, I never thought about that. And now thinking about it, I could probably get in trouble for shipping sleaze fiend to certain Southern states, but I don't care. I don't care.
Well, there's a young filmmaker named Tyler Hosley, and I'll shout him out because I like Tyler. He makes the sleaziest little nasty films. Okay, one film he made has a character watching Bajingwa in Rape Me. Okay, and he actually the character watches one of the rape sequences, which is actual pornography. And I told him, I said, dude, I like this film, but you got to cut that porn out. I can't show it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't show that segment. And then he did some. He has this stare fetish series that he did. I think it's just called like Steps 1, Steps 2, Steps 3, about this guy that likes having sex with his stairs. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's out there. I love it because it's so raw. You know, I mean, and this guy Tyler idolizes like Rob Zombie. He's like the perfect little Rob Zombie, follower, little minion. But his films are, I love the rawness of it and just the unbridled nature of it. Guy having sex. I mean, because it has no plot. I've given him advice like, okay, let's work on your plot. Quit taking music. You can't use Bowie's song here. Dude. I mean, I know some indie bands. Just get some music from an indie band. And I'll give him advice like that. But I try to show his films. So he has this series Steps. The guy has sex with the steps. Well, then the steps give birth. So there's these little weird rug monsters. Wow. These little weird rug monsters sitting around.
That's totally Lynchian. That's some David Lynch shit.
It is.
Right
it's
there.
Totally out there. So that stuff I'll play after midnight. So that'll be like, if you're up after midnight and you're coming in to watch a movie, this is what we're watching. Because you're going to be drunk. You've already got 6 beers in you. You've got 2 in your hand. And God knows what else you're doing. And this is what we're going to watch. And we're going to melt your mind. That's what we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always wondered about that. And I guess we've never... I know I've had you on EC. And we've talked a little bit about... I think, when you came on EC and promoted, I think that was the first year of the Mad Monster, wasn't it? Or maybe the second? It was pretty early in the game.
It was either the first or the second. I think I promoted the first 2 on your show.
Yeah.
I think I talked about both of them. But yeah.
I don't think I ever got into asking you about what kind of films that would come in, but I don't know if there was as many as you're getting now because it was so early. I'm sure you got a lot, but I'm sure you got a lot more now.
Well, we also got to play the Cabal cut of Nightbreed for the first time.
That's right. Which
States,
I think that cut blows, but because it's not, at least the one I saw, it's not cleaned up. Like that's like off of a VHS tape or something.
Right. Well, all credit goes to Michael Pumides for setting that up. So I'll just go ahead and throw that out there in a big shout.
Yeah, it takes the footage that was reinserted takes you out of the movie, and every time that it cuts, and it does it so frequently that it makes it distracting.
Now that was the initial. That's the initial version. Now I have not. They literally just released the final version where they've remastered it. So I would like to see the remastered version. Okay, and it's,
they should have waited probably.
It's a limited print. Well, they couldn't wait. This was a grassroots movement. You have to understand. Now, Michael used to call me, and he would tell me he was having these conversations with so-and-so at, what's it called? Morgan House Pictures, something Pictures. But anyway, the company that has the rights to Clive Barker's Nightbreed. Michael called the guy and said, look, you have this. People want to see it. You should start showing it. So the idea was to show it in conventions here or there. The first time I saw the extra footage was as the director's cut, which was in Cincinnati at one of the Horror Hound shows. Right, it wasn't edited properly until it turned into the Cabal cut, which is what we showed at Mad Monster. So Cincinnati show was the first one, and then Mad Monster was the second one. Though we had the cut of it. And then that Cabal cut made a few more appearances here and there. And that was to build word of mouth so that they would get the director's cut released. So that they would get the further Cabal cut released. So, they had to do that.
But that regular Cabal cut came out or something because I saw a rip of it, and that's where I saw it. So it came off of a DVD. Somebody had a copy of it.
There was a limited version of it, but they just did a remaster of it, though. So, unless you just saw it like within the last couple months, you haven't seen it.
No. I saw this probably 3 years ago.
Okay,
maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, I saw that early cut. Yeah. Well, like I said, I mentioned it wasn't cleaned up or anything, and that was what was distracting. But yeah, I would love to, and it looked interesting. It was just like that's a film where it's subterranean, underground, a lot of it, and those shots were really dark, and it was just difficult to see what was going on. And yes, if it was remastered, I'd love to see it. I love Nightbreed. I mean, I think it's a good film, actually. A lot of people don't. I know that got a lot of... I think when it came out, it got a bunch of bad reviews, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It got buried.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's better than Hellraiser 3.
Yeah, it is better than Hellraiser 3, even with my appearance in it. But yeah.
Your appearance is the best part of that movie. EC MVP fandom. Yeah. Me and Newt always cross-reference that. Like,
funny.
I don't know, because Newt loves that. Newt likes that movie. He's a huge Barker fan, and he's read like the books and everything, and he says that's very close to the books and everything like that, as far as it being in the spirit. And I like part 2, so out of all of them, I
part
guess.
2 is great. The first 2 are great.
Bloodlines, yeah.
And 3 has its moments, and then 4 has its moments, and they kind of fall off the cliff after that. But anyway, so what's going on with Bat32? What's going on with Exploited? What's going on with Sleaze Fiend Magazine?
Yeah, well, like I was talking about earlier, Revival House picked up the first 68 episodes of Exploited Cinema, the back episodes, and then they helped facilitate a recording of episode 69, where me and Dale, after we did your show, we had so much fun actually. Not necessarily like the experience. I mean, yeah, the experience was fun, and it got us back into podcasting. But that was kind of like our warm up. Sadly, your show was our warm up, and we had a little bit more. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It turned out pretty good. Better than I thought it would. I was kind of cringing, but you did a good job editing it together and just kind of piecing it together better. And we had some technical problems at the start of it. I remember just you trying to figure out what recorder, which we had a little bit of that going on tonight too, but I didn't mind. It wasn't a big deal. So, yeah, we enjoyed that so much that we got an offer to do another episode and more episodes if we wanted, like bring the show back. And we did the commentary, and we had a blast doing the commentary. It's out now. You can go to search Revival House on YouTube. And although I mentioned all Spotify and everything, we're on there too, because Revival House has set up like another feed, Exploited Cinema feed, and we're on iTunes, Spotify. All the back episodes are being uploaded.
Cool.
So you can actually download the original episode. But they're also get uploaded to YouTube if you just want to throw YouTube video on, or if that's how you consume your stuff at work or whatever, you just put on YouTube. I think the first 5 episodes are up. I don't think everything's out on the podcast feeds. They're slowly just week by week or every other week or something putting up back episodes. But the Water Power episode 69 went up Tuesday, I think, and so that's out. And yeah, I think we covered the ultimate.
Such a disturbing film.
I know, right? We had to. Well, Zach Wells was one of the co-hosts, and he actually used to be a listener of EC, and he's turned podcaster, and so he joined us, and he's kind of audio engineer there, and edit and does a lot of their little clip art and stuff. Is very, very talented with the clip art, and being a fan of the show, a listener, he was like all about it. So yeah, he helped us get that rolling. He sat and watched the movie with us. He was suggesting, like, because I remember he was like, we should cover like Faces of Death or something. I was like, oh, the old teenager test of strength movie. I said, well, we're all adults now, and we've seen that kind of stuff when we were kids. I think we need to do something a little bit more adult. So I picked Water Power, and it did cause a little stir with Aaron, who's been involved with BTM, and he's kind of now the kind of sole owner of it. Riverman and Lush don't do that show anymore, but Aaron was always one that would pop up every now and again, and he's kind of the keeper of that whole network now. And he doesn't really like pornography. He's kind of like your buddy Brento. He doesn't like that that filthiness, and so he did finally agree, but he's just worried about it getting flagged. And I was like, man, they got that fucking that grave robber video, grave robbing for morons video of this kid from New York that is actually doing a how-to video with skulls and shit, real bones that he dug up. Like, I think we'll be all right with the Water Power commentary, but they were really worried. A lot of the stuff has turned into they don't want to lose their monetization that they're getting on YouTube, and so that's kind of,
that can be an issue on
just sell
YouTube.
Yeah, But, you know, our woes back when podcasting was, you know, as far as money goes, is, you know, there was no money. Like, there was nothing to make money off of then. So you know, my hat's off to these modern podcasters that are now trying to make some bucks off of it, I guess. But I don't, you know, I did the show not giving a fuck. Like, well, you can't take nothing away from us if we are too obscene. Like, if anything, it might get blocked or deleted or something, or blocked on Facebook or something. But pretty much, I mean, what are you going to do? You don't have no control. I run a blog and, you know, use a free, you know, upload website. There's not really much anybody can do to try to pull the rug out from under us. We weren't involved in a network or anything where we had to be PC. We could use whatever copyrighted music we wanted to. We don't have to worry about the video or whatever getting pulled because of that. I mean, we're just pretty much wild, wild west. And so when they tell me these things, I just don't understand it. Like, no, that's not what EC stood for. EC stood for shocking, disturbing, making you feel uncomfortable, like the content. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just whatever you want to say and do. And
you guys
like,
reviewed that one movie. What was it?
Breaking Point.
Yeah, Breaking Point.
Breaking Point and Thriller: A Cruel Picture, from Boar and V. Vaness that did Thriller.
I was familiar with Thriller, but I had Breaking Point. I had not, and that movie blew me away. And
have you seen it? Oh, you saw it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's awesome.
You go on to watch. Yeah, I mean, you hear about it and you go watch it. Yeah,
it's good though. It's not like it's actually got some rewatchability. It's sleazy, but. Yeah.
It's good. My favorite line is she goes, "You want to see me fuck the gear shift?" That's so out of left field. Oh my god. Oh, that.
And then you said that the dog from Once Upon a Time got a palm d'or. I'm hoping that the fly that landed on that dude's dick got like a palm fly. You know.
Brandy got a palm dog, but yeah, that fly definitely deserved a palm dick or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I remember me and J-Dog joked that he went on to do another porno, and then eventually David Cronenberg's The Fly. He had a great career.
That's funny.
Oh, God. Yeah, that was like, because, you know, they're putting the episodes up in order, so that was like the second episode, and I got a lot of hits out of everything. The first 5 episodes, that was the one that the new listeners, you know, new crowd wanted to hear, I guess. I had a blast doing that episode though. And, you know, J-Dog had never seen that film either. And, you know, I just dig for weird stuff. So, you know, that's kind of how I ran across it. And, you know, I read about what was in it and I was like, oh, this sounds more hardcore than Thriller. So.
Yeah, well, that was one reason I thought you'd be a good co-host for this show. I mean, just because your own knowledge of obscure films and various media and whatnot.
Not on Tarantino's level, though. That guy, like, knows all the cast crew. I mean, even uncredited, like, he digs it up. And I kind of get, like, where he's coming from and everything, and, like, how he kind of sees the world. Like, because when I watched his movie, I saw it through his eyes, which is kind of a little bit like my eyes, very detail-oriented, and having each little piece here and stuff is kind of how I, like, look at my work, and with the magazine, which we can get onto that, I guess. You know, I try to... You know, when I put things together, and now right now I'm working on best of, because there's been a demand for the first 2 issues, which have been out of print, and so I've been putting a best of issue together, and you know, trying to put a lot of the best articles and everything in there. But also, I've been going back and like changing some of the art, like pieces of artwork that were. So there's going to be some different pictures or whatever probably involved, because I was like, oh, that was not a very good picture. That was kind of pixelated, and you know, I want it to look better. And so I'm always looking at things like poster artwork that correlates with things, or just weird things like that to stick in there. Like, hey, have you ever seen this? You know, I think I even have a Monroeville Mall ad somewhere that I found It's an old like newspaper ad that was some of the stores and like coupons and stuff for Monroeville.
awesome.
I should throw that in there.
You should throw that in there.
You know.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I really enjoyed the first three episodes, first three issues. I mean, I always I just enjoyed fanzines, so I like being a part of one. And the subject matter is a bit sleazier than I like to be open about. I mean, for me, I'd rather talk about Star Wars or Tarantino. So I kind of have to dive way into the bottom of my dark side to write for the Sleaze Fiend magazine. But I'm like, I mean, I think we're all sleazy on somewhere, even these people that pretend not to be, they're sleazy behind doors. So, fuck it.
Yeah, I think that you say it's pretty sleazy. I don't think it's sleazy enough. Like, wait till you see this. So we're doing the best of, like, that's just kind of the wet the mouths of the readers out here that are waiting, because it took a while to get that third issue out, and then that was even a year ago. It's been a year since that third issue finally dropped, and so I want to do a best of, because like I said, I've been getting people asking about the back issues, and instead of just reprinting them, I want to bring something new to the table. So, some of the people that may have bought the first two issues, they could still buy this, and there's going to be some new articles. But now issue 4, which you are working, you're going to be involved in here. You're working on an article as well as all the past writers. Yeah, that's just going to be like a bucket of fucking sleaze dumped on your head. Like, I'm pulling out all the guns here with this one. I'm writing three feature articles for this. Maybe another one, because it's probably going to be a book. It's going to be over 100 pages. So, and then you're a feature article writer usually in the magazine, as well as our friend Nick Thompson. So there's going to be a lot of large articles, and I know for a fact that I already have one large one, and it's Shot on Spawn Ranch, which the Tarantino Once Upon a Time in Hollywood brought my whole article full circle. I wasn't able to finish it completely until the last paragraph. I couldn't finish until I saw the movie in theaters. The next day I came home and wrote the last little bit of it, which I didn't go into too much detail, but and then drop some other stuff in there, like when I review Linda and Abilene, the Herschel Gordon Lewis film. I went back in there and dropped a little reference to the poster being in George Spawn's house in the movie, and stuff like that. But I mean, it's going to be huge. I'm really trying to get the magazine out there. A lot of people have told me that we've gotten a lot of new traffic. I think we've got 1,600 likes on the Facebook page now. For a while, I didn't have access. My old Facebook account was locked out, and I had to have one of the admins get me back in there and get me active. And since I've been back posting buckets and buckets of sleaze daily, like, really, that's how you work a social media account. It can't just be about things you're selling. Like, I post posters and links to just different sleazy stuff and just try to cross promote. And it's, keeping it active and constantly posting helps gather, clicks and viewers and, stuff like that. So we're really just trying to give it this last push, because like a lot of new people have told me, I never even heard of you guys. Well, that makes sense. No wonder nobody's fucking buying them. People are buying the magazine, but, I would have thought by now it would have taken off a little bit more, and I think it's just getting it out there. Plus, I don't do I don't go to conventions, or everyone says, well, you should really get out to a convention, and it's just like, I don't know.
That would help, but I mean,
really
there's
have
a whole
time to do the
overhead
mag.
to that. Yeah, I mean, then you got to pay to get in the convention. Or you're paying to have a table there. Then you got to pay to have room at the hotel there. It turns into this whole other expense, and it's the same problem we have with promoting our films. You just want to make movies and have people watch them. You don't have to do all this other added on stuff or deal with all these extra problems.
Yeah, I'm really just content with writing. I like writing articles and everything, but what I really enjoy the most is laying the magazine out and getting that final product polished and everything, and ran ready for print. And I think as just like an editor and layout, working on layout is what I love the most. I wish, I could, this was doing better, and then like I could pay like you guys, you and everyone as like full-time writers, and just have you guys churn out. Maybe I throw out, okay, well, I want to see an article on this, right? Can you write something on this? And have somebody else fucking write it. Like, the last issue, issue 3, I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot of those one-page reviews that were featured in there, the Bikesploitation issue. And I wrote a little bit more than I wanted to write. And this issue, I'm writing a little bit more than I can't say it's more than I want. It's more than I want to put in one issue, but I just feel like, I don't know. One guy told me, I said, yeah, I don't know. This was when I had a different print company handling it. And I said, yeah, I mean, it's costly and everything, and I don't know if I'll be able to continue to do this. And he saw, we traded magazines, and I think he's out of Europe somewhere, and he said, he only puts out like 15 pages in his book, and he said, yeah, man, your problem is your page count, you put too many pages. And I'm like, what's the fucking point of it? It's like something someone's going to read. Like, you're not giving them a book, like a novel. So,
right.
I mean, you better try to, like, I try to put, 70, 80 pages in there to give them something worth their while. So I don't think that page count is the problem. I think it needs more pages, honestly, and that's what I'm trying to do with this 4th issue. So, and then even the best of issue is probably going to be over 100 pages too, because it's going to have 70, 80 new pages of new content. So it's going to be like another issue. It's going to be like 3.5. Sleaze Fiend issue 3.5, and then the 4th issue is going to come along sometime in November, December, maybe late October. We'll see. Well, but I've been working on it, man, and I know you're working on your article. All the writers have been busy, so maybe you could take them to Mad Monster. Maybe I can give you like 20 of them, and you just take them and fucking promote. I don't know.
I can do it. Well, every time I go, I give a copy to the promoter because he loves that kind of stuff.
He enjoys it? Did he see? Did you see the last issue of Sleaze Fiend issue 3?
Yeah, I think I've given him a copy of all of them.
Okay. What did he think of it? The last issue? Did he like it?
He says he loves it. I mean, he hasn't given me any kind of specific feedback, but
yeah, I really worked hard on that, and I know everybody did. I know you didn't like your article that much, but now in retrospect,
clunky. I never got it to quite come together.
In retrospect, at first I remember you saying, well, I'm going to talk about Easy Rider and Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, and I was like, okay, Sweet Sweetback's like has a little bit of biker stuff, but I don't know if it plays into it. And now, after it, thinking about it, and it is a good article. It's not bad, actually, because I just didn't think that meshed well. And I've got a back issue of Al Goldstein's Screw magazine, and it's from 1971, and it has an interview in there with Melvin Van Peebles. And I also heard a story about how in the boardroom or whatever, with the Screw writers and editors and stuff would be sitting around. And they said that, Melvin Van Peebles would be sitting there, and, Al would have special guests, I guess, people that were impactful on the cultural, sexual revolution and stuff of the era. He had Abby Hoffman when he was on the run, I guess, was in the boardroom one time sitting there, listening to him talk about Screw. And I guess Melvin was regular, and it made me realize that, yes, he is a 1960s social revolutionary, because he did start blaxploitation film, and he was an outlaw. And your article was about film outlaws, so it really did. It took a minute to really understand it, but yes, you were onto something there, man, with that, and I think that is a really good article, actually. I don't,
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a while to, have its impact felt, I guess. Anything that's good or different. So I saw that. I don't know if that's what you're going for, but I finally picked up on it. It took me a little while.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Maybe if I had written it better, you'd have picked up on it sooner, but yeah. Yeah, there's parts of it I definitely like because I mean I always try to write from the heart, okay? And I honestly I'll tell you I'm a storyteller, I'm not a journalist, okay? So I just try to communicate to the audience. So if anything, I'm doing a bad Hunter S. Thompson impersonation, where I'm just doing Gonzo writing.
Some Gonzo, yeah.
And relating.
That's one of my favorite writers, so I love it.
Relating my experience with the subject matter, to the audience, and try to show it through the filter of my experience,
Yeah, every time I try to do any kind of gonzo journalism, it just doesn't come off that way. So I feel like I'm more of a technical writer. Like, here's the facts, and I try to just be fairly factually accurate and throw in some nice little fun facts and tidbits that people don't know. And I don't know. I don't think I'm that great of a writer. That's why I said, I would love it if I had a budget and, I could hire and pay writers to where, I could just do what I like, which is lay the magazine out and come out with what the cover design's going to be, and get an idea of what we should have for articles, or at least a few main articles, and then let everyone just kind of run wild and then lay it out. But yeah, when you're doing something yourself, you can't and you don't have any money, you can't really do that. So you kind of got to get in there, and it's good for me to be able to understand how a article should flow and stuff from writing it myself, to where I can, because early on I tried to stay away from editing too much, because I don't really like to mess with anybody's stuff. Like, it's like, that's your words, that's what you wanted to write, and I don't really want to change it because it's you, and that's what you're, certain editors, I guess, get in there and start fucking with stuff, and it just messes up the flow. So, like, if I edited and said, oh, the way he's writing this is like he's talking to somebody, I need to rewrite his article, you'd been offended, because it would have changed what you were doing, so.
Sure, yeah.
A little too much hands-on, I guess. And I try to not have any hands-on, to the point to where I even misspelling errors. I do read over the articles, but I try not to mess with anything too much. I'll catch what I can.
Yeah.
But I don't ever change anything. I'll ask somebody to shorten it if I don't think it's going to fit. And, that's just went over page count. And I feel bad about that, too. So
you just have to do that sometimes. Yeah. Well, if I had a budget, I would definitely I would do more episodes of MVP Mutant Radio, but I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not independently wealthy at this point. The podcast is not monetized. It's just part of the overall MVP experience. So, we make our films. If you want to know behind the scenes stuff, we'll post things to YouTube. We post our older projects. We have the Mutitia films which come out here and there, which, let me say, man, I had a technical problem with the last episode of Mutitia, in that I had a drive die on me that has the project on it, so I'm trying to get that back up so I can complete the third episode. But
so what do you got to do? Take it to a company and have them pull the files off?
I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I mean,
there's restoration companies that will do that, but it's costly. So Seagate will even do it. Is it a Seagate hard drive?
It's Western Digital, I believe.
Oh, Western Digital might do it too, because I had a Seagate one die and it had everything on it, and it was under warranty. And I called them and they were like, "Yeah, we can. It'll cost $300 for us to salvage it, but if you send it in to us, we'll just." And I'm like, "I got files on there I need. Like, you guys, this is fucked up. You're putting out shitty technology, your shitty products, and then like people are gonna trust that your product's reliable, and then it's not. It's like, yeah, I know you'll give me my money back or exchange it, but that's not what I want. I want my files.
Right.
I don't think I want to get another hard drive from you because I don't trust your product. Now I just want my files. You can have the shitty drive, back. You can keep it. Keep my money. Have somebody salvage my stuff off. So. Yeah, that's technology, man. Everybody wants to go digital and not have any physical media. This is exactly what I was afraid of will happen, and I don't trust all my stuff I put it on multiple drives now, man. Like, it just.
Yeah, and the only reason, and I know better, I know to have it backed up on multiple drives, and I don't because of limitations, because I just couldn't afford another drive to have it backed up on at the time. So, that's my own stupidity, but what can you do? But why don't we bring the show to a close here, because I've held you on way too long already tonight, but I appreciate you sharing your encyclopedic knowledge of film, and especially on the seedier, sleazier aspects. And definitely to people out there, if you're interested in anything we said about Gary Kent, check that guy out. Check out his interviews with our friend 42nd Street Pete. Tell him Streebo and Bat32 sent you. And,
those are on the Jackalope radio network. I think those old podcasts. Now, they're not like labeled, but they were 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse episode. I think if you type in that, it should take you to Jackalope. And just start going through them, because Gary appeared on that show 10 times and told all kinds of old Hollywood stories that are just great. So,
absolutely. So tell people where they can get in touch with Bat32 if they've got questions about exploited cinema, or they want to find out about the upcoming episode of Sleaze Fiend magazine.
Sleaze Fiend, we have a Facebook page. It's Sleaze Fiend magazine. Just type that in and it should take you, should bring it up. And then, we're on Revival House network. I think it's revivalhouse.net is their website, but I don't know if that's even... Just go to YouTube, and all the links are on each one of the websites where you can download the back episodes. And, of course, check out the Water Power episode that me and Dale commentary we did over Water Power. There's all kinds of facts, and we just... it's about hour and 57-minute sleaze fest. So I want to say it's one of our better episodes, and definitely what we were doing before. It's if anybody that likes exploited cinema, you'll love that episode. It's great. I loved it. I enjoyed listening to it, and I don't even listen to my own podcast usually. So
it is hard to do sometimes, but you just sent me the link to that, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'm sure it's super sleazy and filled with all kinds of sleazoids. Our
sleazy innuendos
throughout. So I'm sure it's a lot of fun. Of course, as always, you can find all things MVP over at mutantville.com, our dedicated blog, the MVP blog. And the show is mirrored over at mvpmutantradio.blogspot.com. I have to remember that whole clunky URL there. You can shoot questions to me on any of those sites. If you post a comment there, post something on the blog, post something on the Mutantville Productions Facebook page. You can find me on the Twitter machine at JTMCROBERTS. Follow my musings there. I'm also on Instagram. You can download MVP Mutant Radio at all places you can find finer podcasts. Of course, tell your friends, tell your mothers, tell your wives. MVP Mutant Radio is here, so no reason to hide inside. But I do want to extend a special thanks to my co-host for the evening, Bat32. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for bringing the info, bringing the sleaze, and making this another entertaining journey through the study of cinema.
Thanks for having me on, sir. And by the way, if I'm on the show, Streebo, don't tell your mom to listen, because she won't like it.
She will not like it. I think she probably stopped listening after the last time she made that mistake, so I don't have to worry about that too much.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry. I'm a scumbag. I'm sorry.
That you are, but, we wouldn't take it any other way. So thank you for listening, my faithful mutants. Keep your heads high. Keep on aiming for that star in the sky. This is MVP Mutant Radio. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.